This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to Mansfield Park for this week's Borders Rugby Special. We're on the air earlier than usual because of the Scottish Cup first round, and that means potential for extra time. So 1:30 kickoffs in most of the games today. So we're here for Hawick against Jedforest, which was always going to be a mouth-watering prospect, with the winner going to Raeburn Place on March the 25th to take on Edinburgh Accies. Well, we've also got coverage from Netherdale of Gala versus Glasgow Hawks. That's National 1 against Premiership there. And that game kicks off at 2 o'clock. We'll cross to Netherdale shortly, but here in Hawick, Nicky Walker and Dale Clancy will be in the commentary box for us, and Dale joins us now. Hello.
Yeah, the cups they're great occasions. They're really exciting, and I think especially this game, it's an interesting one in itself because Hawick have been going so well, in league action. Jedforest have had a more positive campaign than they have, last season, but it's cup rugby. It's knockout rugby. Both teams will just be wanting the win for different reasons as well. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting tie.
And it's Jedforest against Hawick. It's a border derby. They've played each other twice this season. It's going to be good because this is a cup game. It's a total different mentality.
Yeah, definitely. Hawick, we've lavished them in praise over the duration of the season because they have been so impressive. 16 games undefeated. They've won 15 games in a row. 2 of them obviously coming against Jedforest, a 26 points to 7 win and a 22-12 win on the road as well. So, really impressive performances in terms of the way Hawick have been. Jed have not won at Mansfield Park in a long, long time. So, it's one of those things that Jed, I think, have a free swing at the bat. They've got an opportunity here to just throw caution to the wind. It is pretty windy here, ironically, but it's a good chance for them to try and upset the odds and try and topple what would be a very positive campaign for Hawick, because they're certainly targeting the double.
Well, it's certainly very windy. It's very cold at the back of this stand, colder than normal. The teams have been out for a while now, warming up, and earlier I spoke to both head coaches, Andrew Brown from Jed, and first of all Hawick's boss, who is of course Matty Douglas. Well, Matty, back in your happy place, Mansfield Park. It's a good hunting ground for you this year.
Yeah, really good, Stuart. Obviously different tasks today, Cup Rugby, but yeah, look, we're pleased to be back here, and then we've got a week off next week, so we're keen to get back onto Mansfield and test our performance again, as last week at times we were a little bit off the pace in the first half. So yeah, look, we're happy to be back, and we've got a long record to hear that we're unbeaten, so that'll be at the back of our minds. But no, we're looking for a big performance today by the players. And the
Bill McLaren Shield, of course, is also up for grabs. It's not just a league thing; it's a cup thing as well.
Yeah, I think the Bill McLaren Shield, we've had it for a long time now, and speaking to some of the committee, I think we're three wins off taking over Ayr with 17. I think they've got 17 or 18 wins on the bounce, so that's another incentive. And look, at someone who we didn't really touch on, the Bill McLaren Shield, in terms of prepping for a game, but it's all about it does mean a lot to the players with Bill being for Hawick, so we're pleased to have been able to keep it as long, and it's just about trying to keep it even longer.
Now, today is a cup match. It's not a league game at all, so it's a different kind of mindset going into this. It's a one-off game. Now, the one-off games, of course, will be the playoffs as well. So it's, in a way, it's a good practice for the playoffs, which are coming up in a few weeks' time. That you can focus your minds on these one-off matches.
Yeah, and I think that's probably been at the forefront of our squad selection today. Obviously, Cup Rugby, we've got a lot of forced players, and I have been at Hawick in the past where you make 5-6 changes, and look, we could have took that approach, but as a coaching team, as a group of players, the Cup was a focus at the front of our mind as well, and I think that goes with the team we've picked today. We've not made a lot of changes, but we've been able to give a few boys an opportunity, like say young Charlie Welsh at fullback. He comes in and giving Rudy McLeod a start. He's not started since start of the season, so even though we've not made wholesale changes, we're still able to drop boys in and give them an opportunity, which what Cup Rugby's about. But at the same time, as you say, the playoffs is definitely at the front of the mind, and we need to start building some consistency into that. And this game today will go a long way into the week off next week, and then we're into a tough run-in.
Certainly is, and just looking at that bench as well, you've got Jay Linton, Fraser Rennick and Matt Carey on the bench. That's not bad, is it?
Yeah, no, a lot of experience, and look, Matt, this week we're not covering Fraser as a back row like the last couple of weeks. We've maybe looked at Mar away. We took 3 hookers. Matty Carrier covered hooker, and we brought Ross Graham onto back row. But today we're actually giving Matty a shot in at loose head at some point in the game because we lost Nicky Little last week. So front rower, very thin on the ground at every club, and look, we're probably one injury away again for needing to call somebody else in. So Matt Carrier is going to get a bit of game time at loose head today, and it's always, as a coach, you always have backup plans. So, but Matty trains hard. Matty's worked really hard to get himself back into the team. He's had a bit of disappointment with playing behind Fraser and Ross, so this is a chance for him today to stamp a bit of authority, and great to welcome Jay back after a month's holiday to Australia. So we're glad to see him back in the squad.
He'll be raring to go, wanting a piece of the action, won't he?
Yeah,
piece of the green action.
Oh, definitely. Look, he's performed to a high standard this season, and we're keen to get a bit of match fitness into him. But look, on the flip side, he's struggling to get back in the team at the minute because we've got a back row that, through the month we've not said we've missed Jay. That's one comment we've not made. If we had Jay, would have been better. He's a great player to have, but that back row, Stuart Graham at 8 really stepped up, and that's why he keeps that 8 jersey today. So competition's big, but look, this Jed side that even if they're missing a couple of players, they've got. They're here to throw the ball around. That's probably the way Andy will have them playing, and we're going to have to be switched on.
Well, we look forward to it. We wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
Well, Andrew, good to see you here again at Mansfield Park. This is about the 3rd meeting, I think, this season between the two sides. So obviously looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's again we get another crack at them. After so far, we haven't let ourselves down when we've played Hawick, and it's been in the 2 contests so far have been 2 good games, so hopefully we expect the same again today.
And I think at Jed's you actually beat them in a half, didn't you?
Second half we won the second half. Obviously we gifted them the first half, and then came out and played in the second half. But then again, when we played them here, it was a contest right up until the last 5 minutes. Probably score didn't really reflect the game. So a competitive game ahead, I think.
There's been real positives this season, hasn't it? You came in at the start of the season, and I don't know what your personal ambitions were, but certainly safety was the priority. And you managed to do that very easily, and the boys are scoring tries.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the main aim was safety. But the main thing that we were trying to do was change culture and get the buzz back into Jed. We want them playing rugby we want the 15s to be as successful as the 7s. And as enjoyable, and I think we're getting there. I think we've definitely made a mark, and we're definitely heading in the right direction. The boys are scoring tries, and we're playing some good rugby. So we just need to be a little bit more consistent, and keep the continuity into the game, and we'll and perform for the 80 minutes, and we'll do all right.
And from a neutral point of view, I mean, some of those results have been absolutely outstanding. You've been scoring 30 plus, but unfortunately sometimes they get the 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it. Well, it's one thing. It's one thing to attack, but we certainly need to defend as well. So we'll, that's the main aim today. Is to we know it's going to be physical. We know what Hawick are about. So today we're going to have to man up and match them for the physicality and be ready for what's going to come at us.
And you come in to this match in a very good place because you're safe from the league. You can park that now effectively, and now there's the cup. It's a new challenge, and a one-off game, anything can happen.
Yeah, it's just the main thing's enjoyment. We want the lads to go out on the park, express themselves the way they want to express themselves, and enjoy themselves. That's what it's about. There's no pressure on us. We're just here to play rugby. If anything, maybe the pressure's a little bit on Hawick because they're the ones who have to perform. They're at home. They're the ones that are flying high. So yeah, we can just come out, do our thing, and enjoy the day.
Well, just finally, a quick look at the team. Good to see Mason Cullen back at fullback. That's a big plus. And of course, your halfbacks, because Aidan Bambrick's got a slight injury, so he's on the bench. But in comes Lewis Walker. Great to see him again. And Callum Young at standoff.
Yeah, just a bit of a mix-up. There's a little bit of unavailability this week, but what Lewis brings, Lewis Walker brings to 9. So the first time he's played there for Jed, obviously he came off the bench last week at 9 and performed really well. So exciting to see him starting there, and back on the field. He's an outstanding rugby player, and he's got some great talent. And then obviously Callum, you could stick anywhere on the field. It doesn't matter as long as he's.
Don't put him in the front row.
As long as he's, he'd probably do a job. But as long as he's got a shirt on his back, that's the main thing.
And that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
You talk about the culture. It's all about wearing the shirt, wearing the jersey, being proud to go in the park.
Looking after it for the day. You know, you hang it up at the end of the day, and you leave it in a better place than when you put it on. That's the main thing.
Well, we wish you well, and we look forward to a good game.
Thank you very much.
That's Andrew Brown, coach of Jedforest, and Hawick's Matty Douglas meeting for the third time this season. So far 2-0 to Hawick, but this is a cup game. Anything can happen, although Hawick know how to win these one-off games. Well, Nicky Walker has joined Dale and I at the back of the stand now. And Nicky, you've experienced cup rugby, of course, at the very highest level, playing at Murrayfield for Hawick. What has it meant to you?
Yeah, I think the cup's massive to all clubs, but I mean, in terms of Hawick this season, I think sitting top of the league, I think they can get a refocus and get themselves in the cup and get a cup run, and I certainly think they'll have their eyes on getting themselves to Murrayfield for sure. And
of course another Welsh getting to play for Hawick for the first time, big moment for him.
Yeah, Charlie's, I think he's been playing really well for the second 15, and you know, he's got his selection today. I think there's a couple of changes in the squad today, and I think the cup gives Hawick the opportunity to, you know, blood a few youngsters. You know, they've got a bit of momentum, they've kept some experience in the team, and it's good for young players to come in amongst those first 15 that have been playing really well. So, you know, I think Charlie will go well today.
Romance of the Cup, Dale, of course. How close did you get to Murrayfield, apart from the pitch side?
Yeah, I was pitch side when Peebles got to the Shield. I was injured as always, but yeah, you know, Peebles, they found they were at their level. We got to the Shield final.
That was Glasgow Hawks, wasn't it?
Got beat
21-14.
Yeah, Peter Wright's Glasgow Hawks. It was a great occasion, but you know, to think about it, I remember back in 2002, I had a big TV with a big back on it in my room. And I did watch the BT Cup final, and a certain Mr. Walker scoring the winning try in the last minute, and it's amazing to see how far he's come now to be able to be sitting alongside us.
Fantastic, isn't it? A quick word, Nicky, before we move on to other things. There's an initiative that you're involved with, obviously, at Borders College. Obviously, we saw Corrie Tate last night representing Scotland under 20. A fantastic performance from the boys, just missing out in the end, but coming back from 31-10 was an amazing achievement. But he's a product of the college. Tell us about the HND Year 1 rugby coaching and development students, because they're about to join up with local clubs, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got a cohort of rugby students who, you know, they play rugby. A lot of them are part of the rugby academy, but also, you know, they've got good experience and they've been coached well previously, so they know what good coaching looks like. So they're going to go out in the community and actually do their coaching placements in local clubs in the Borders. It just means that they can be assessed coaching in real life situations rather than coaching in-house and coaching their peers. So it makes sense for them to go out and coach in the community. You know, obviously the community benefit of that, but so then also the students do have coaching in real life situation rather than coaching each other.
Let's move venue, because I mentioned earlier that the other local team involved today in Cup action is Gala from National League 1, who take on Glasgow Hawks from the Premiership today. And I think we can go up to Netherdale now, join Robin Purdy. He's with Scott Tomlinson there for us today. Robin, your game kicks off at 2 o'clock, but Gala must be very confident.
Yes, good afternoon from Netherdale. Hi, Stuart. Yeah, Gala, I think, will be in reasonable. Well, you don't get in much better fettle than a win against the league leaders at the league leaders patch last week. So yeah, Gala come into this in good spirits. Both of these clubs, of course, have sort of good relationships, if you like, with the Scottish Cup. Gala won it famously in 2009, and the Glasgow Hawks have won it no less than 3 times. So it's perfect conditions here. The sun is out. There's a little bit of wind. I don't think there's a better club pitch in Scotland than Netherdale. So yeah, we're expecting a good game today, and I think it's in the balance.
And it is National 1 against Premiership, but that's not going to matter a jot, is it? Because Gala would fancy themselves as a Premiership club anyway. Yeah,
it's hard to determine just how big a gap there is between a Premiership club that's not been firing in recent weeks and a Gala team that seem to have picked up a bit of form, or still in the upper reaches of the division below. But I was kind of milling around at pitch side earlier, and there's, as you'd expect, there's some big boys in the Hawks ranks, and you feel that if Hawks do get on top today, it could possibly be in the front 5. But yeah, Gala fancy their chances, absolutely, and why not?
You had a wee chat earlier on with Stevie Scott, who's obviously helping out in the coaching department at the moment, and let's hear what he had to say.
So Stevie, the Cup returns today after an absence of a few years. It's been a bit of an up and down league campaign so far, but you'll be heading into this in good spirits after a huge win last week.
Yeah, I think over the last few weeks the boys have been training really well. I think we've been trying to play the game at pace. I think last week we managed to do that against Kelso. We got good results and good scores off the back of that. We're under no illusion this week, playing against Hawks. Obviously they're a Premiership team, so they'll bring a bit of size with them. But to be honest, the boys are in good fettle and they're ready to go.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Hawks, they're obviously an established Premiership team, but they've not been going too well of late. How did Gala go about winning this game today?
Yeah, I think it's taking the confidence from last week. I think it's when we play the game quickly, and that's what we've been training for. We used the AstroTurf quite a bit over the Christmas time just to try and speed that game up, move teams around the field, and we'll be no different today. I think we need to understand that if we can get Parry up front and we've got the backs and we've got the speed to play it, then hopefully we can bounce and keep that train going. Yeah, and looking at the team today, it doesn't look like you've held anything back for this one. No, I haven't. I think it's good that the boys are keen to go again, and we're just trying to build that. It's good to get back to winning ways, and I think the game up at GHK, we've got game for us. It was obviously, I think Dodgy mentioned it a few weeks ago, a month ago, but every time Gala takes the field, it's about winning now, and I think it's important that there's no difference today, that we're here to progress and be up for this game. And there are, however, some injured absentees. Can you update us on some of the boys that miss out, such as Liam Scott, Big Marius and Taylor Wilson? Yeah, I think Marius has been out for quite a while. I think, to be honest, I've not seen Marius since I've been here. I think he had some surgery, but I think he's back training now. He stays up in Livingston, so hopefully I'd like to see him over the next few weeks back at Netherdale. Liam Scott hurt his shoulder at GHK, so he's just waiting on some results from a scan on that. And it's a shame for Liam. He's a good kid. He's a good Gala man, and he's pretty gutted he's a captain and not playing. And then Taylor Wilson's just coming back from an injury from the academy, so hopefully we'll see him over the next couple of weeks. And this competition obviously has a special place in the hearts of all Gala fans, having won the cup on that famous day in 2009. What are your abiding memories of that day? Yeah, we played Kelso in the final. I think the big thing for me was what I remember that day was how many people were at Murrayfield. Our BT Murrayfield was 26,000 people of Borders supporters that really thriving behind the clubs, and it'd be great if a Borders team could get back to the final, I think, because there's so many good players down the Borders, the clubs are thriving, and we just need to, as a Borders rugby team or any team in the Borders, it'd be great to see a Borders team get to that final. And on a day like this, do you look back on that day and try to channel some of that feeling, some of those good vibes into this particular cup campaign? Yeah, definitely. I think it was certainly as a great experience going to Murrayfield and winning. I can remember. Obviously, it was a very tight game. I think it was 9-8. I think the final result was in the game, but I think it was just two teams that were really passionate to win that game, and I think that's all I really want from Gala. Really, since I've came here, is just to fight for everything, and I think that's a big thing that we work hard on. Is fight for every inch, whatever it is, through the tackle, through the ball carry, and no different today against a good Hawk side. So, we wish you all the very best today, Steve. It would be great to see another cup run. Thanks very much. Thank you.
There we are, that is Stevie Scott talking about Gala, who take on Glasgow Hawks today in the Cup at Netherdale. That's a 2 o'clock kick-off. We'll rejoin Robin and Scott a little bit later on. Melrose are still fighting for that one promotion place in National 1 today, and we'll be looking to see how they get on. Hugh Brown is actually there with us right now.
Melrose will be on a high after carving out a great win by 6 points away to GHK last week. Today's opponents are Watsonians, who are not having a good season so far and sit 9th in the table. When the two teams met at the Green Yards in September, Melrose took the spoils with a 40 points to 19 win. But like any team fighting for survival in the league, the Maroons will be out to reverse that result, I'm sure. Team news, Watsonians have 2 changes. Gav Tulloch replaces Ross Stanley on the left wing, and Josh Mitchell is at 20 instead of Jack Brown. For us, the only change is Gordon Fullerton comes in for Ben Weir in the replacements. This is a must-win for the visitors if they want to keep their hopes of promotion alive. It's cloudy and blustery here at Meggetland for Watsonians against Melrose. Kick-off 1:30.
Meggetland? I don't think so. I think Myerside is probably where you are, Hugh, this afternoon. But it's a big day for Berwick, of course, as well at Scremiston. They've slipped down to National League 2, down to the bottom positions. Remember, there's 5 teams that get relegated out, and they lost out by just 1 single point last week, which was really, really disappointing for them. So they're playing 11th place Hamilton today. Mickey Yonotta is at Scremiston for us.
If you think Berwick have injury problems, wait till I get to Hamilton. Carl Gullen at tight head is the only change. Halfbacks Jack Webster and Cammy Rogerson still out. Cammy, though, is a replacement today. Liam Robson is at fullback and Rory Heintoff moves to centre. 8 from 12 can still go down, but Berwick are in the mix above the bottom 3, and they all have plenty of games. Hamilton are second bottom, and their only win this season was against Berwick. Apart from skipper Andrew Wilson, who's forced to play at fly half, their entire back line is unavailable. In fact, only their back row and tight head prop Greg Richardson are first team regulars. It's Berwick against Hamilton.
OK, thank you to Mickey Yonotta there. I mentioned earlier about Melrose, and of course Kelso are playing as well. Kelso are actually playing at home to Dundee today, and they'll be looking to right the wrongs from last week against Gala. Here's Neil Hinnigan, the Director of Rugby.
Dundee have had a couple of good results lately, a notable one against Watsonians last week, who've been going well, and they won fairly comfortable, so they'll be coming down here to get more points and cement their place in the middle of the table. So we're going to have to be on our mettle and look to improve on last week's performance. It wasn't our best. Certainly wasn't our best performance this season. But credit to Gala, they played well and they had tactics and they executed them well. And we just fell on the wrong side of the scoreline. And we've got a lot to work on. And the guys have had a good week's training and preparation. So see how that goes. There's a couple of changes in the team. Cammy Brown drops out and Nick Stingle comes in on the wing, and Liam Herdman comes in at 10, and Murray Hasty takes his place on the replacements bench. But it is a big team effort at Kelso, and all 20 guys will be looking to make an impact on Saturday. And yeah, hopefully it bears fruit, and we can get the result we crave and get back on the top of the league and take things from there.
There we are. That's Neil Hinnigan, the Director of Rugby at Kelso. And after the break, well, it's showtime because it's Hawick against Jedforest.
Based in Galashiels but covering the whole region and beyond, Borders Mortgage Hub is your one-stop shop for all things mortgage related in the Borders. Visit us at bordersmortgagehub.com or call us on 01896 807 008. That's 01896 807 008. Borders Mortgage Hub. Mortgages for the Borders in the Borders.
Hi, Nicky Walker here, Curriculum Manager for Borders College Sport. Are you passionate about sport? If so, then look out for the return of our Borders College rugby, football and hockey courses in early 2023.
Borders College, regionally focused, globally engaged.
To commemorate the 7th anniversary of the opening of the Borders Railway, an 8 DVD box set is now available featuring the complete series Borders Railway from start to finish, plus the full hour-and-a-half documentary 5 Years On, which examines the possibility of an extension to Carlisle, plus extra features including a cab journey along the entire Borders Railway, all for the special price of just £14.99, including post and packing. You can get your copy direct from hotdisc.co.uk/shop. That's hotdisc.co.uk/shop. The 8 DVD box set, the complete Borders Railway, is available now.
When the weather's dreich and a storm's a brewing, you need a strong, windproof, quality umbrella delivered with good old-fashioned customer service and at an affordable price. Up here in Umbrella Heaven, we say you tackle the ball, we'll tackle the weather. UmbrellaHeaven.com for when the heavens open.
Borders Rugby TV's charity partner Evie's Baton Journey is having a ball on March the 25th at Springwood Park, Kelso. Tickets and sponsorship details are now available on the official Facebook page, which you can visit from bordersrugby.net. Evie's having a ball, March the 25th, Springwood Park, Kelso.
This is Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio.
1:28 is the time. We're only moments away from the Scottish Cup Round 1 match between local rivals Hawick and Jedforest. The winner will face Edinburgh Accies at Rayburn Place on March the 25th. Your commentary team this afternoon, live on Borders Rugby Radio, is 24 times capped Scottish international Nicky Walker, and first with no caps at all, Dale Clancy.
I've got Plenty of caps, just not international ones. They've been purchased from various stores, but yes, it's 24 caps between us here at the back of the Mansfield stand. And although eyes are peering onto TV screens from all across Europe as the Six Nations gets underway this afternoon, there's still a lot of club rugby to be played, and the spectators are sprinkling into Mansfield Park as it stands to absorb some Scottish Cup action. And it's round one, and it's going to be Hawick versus Jedforest, and they're targeting success for different reasons this season. A settled Hawick side looking to make it back to the final for the first time in 8 years, and they field a very strong side. It's 15 wins in a row in competitive league action and 16 unbeaten, and it means that the home side start as favourites yet again for this one, and it is a lanyard that the Mansfield men are becoming impressively comfortable in wearing so far this season. They start with Charlie Welsh, who's going to make his debut for the first 15 at fullback. They've got Lewis Ferguson and Ronan McKean on the wings. Ethan Riley and Andrew Mitchell maintain their positions in what has been an impressive centre partnership. Gareth Welsh is at 9 and Kirk Ford moving from fullback to 10 to replace Kyle Brunton. In the front row they've got Sean Muir captain, Ross Graham as hooker with Rudy McLeod making up the front row, Dalton Redpath and Sean Fairbairn in the middle row with Connor Sutherland, Callum Rennick and Stuart Graham in the back row for the home side. Jedforest have had a positive campaign. They've been involved in some really high scoring encounters, and they find themselves in 7th in the league, but league form does not count for a lot in knockout rugby, and they'll be wanting to go toe to toe with one of the best teams in Scottish rugby and upset the odds here. The gloves are certainly off, and the pressure is well and truly with the home side, and Jed will be hoping to make it into the second round of the Cup, and they're going to start with Mason Cullen returning at fullback, Lewis Elder and Shearer Gibb on the wings, with Cranston and Gregor Young making up the centres. Lewis Walker, he starts at scrum half after making an impressive impact off the bench in his last outing, and Callum Young is a makeshift 10, but certainly a talented rugby player in his own right. The front row is made up of Andrew Sweeney, Paulo Ferreira and Harry Meadows, with Dan Wardrop and Clark Skildon making up an impressive boiler house pairing, with Gary Young, Finlay Scott and Ben Fotheringham in the back row. Alongside me this afternoon on co-commentary is Nicky Walker, and obviously we've alluded to it before the game, the Cup is maybe slightly different as to what it used to be. It used to be a real spectacle and a jewel in the crown of Scottish club rugby, but the atmosphere and the kind of razzmatazz round it is maybe diminished slightly, but for the players it's still it's success on the pitch that they'll be wanting.
Yeah, I think Hawick today they'll want to keep that momentum going. Obviously we've been top of the league, but they'll certainly have their eyes on getting to Murrayfield. I think the 3 times Hawick have been to the final, we've brought a big contingent up there, and I think there's a real good feeling about Hawick rugby at the moment, and if they can keep that momentum and get to Murrayfield, I think there'll be a big support follows them.
And certainly, it was alluded to before the game as well in terms of preparation and trying for the playoffs, which are coming up as well. The squad depths will be tested for both sides here, and Jedforest are getting led onto the park by their captain, Clark Skeldon, wearing the number 5 jersey. So he's running onto the park, leading Jedforest onto the field. And Jed perhaps have made a few changes to the team, maybe not as strong on the bench as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a patched up team that Jed have got into. They've obviously got a lot of injuries. There's 8 players there that are potentially first team starters that are not playing today, but still got a strong team. It'll be interesting to see Callum Young playing 10, obviously out of position, but obviously a really experienced and good player. And then Finlay Scott, who's actually a natural hooker, is playing at 7, but again a really versatile and good player, and that's what you tend to get from Jedburgh, because of obviously their 7's experience, and expertise. They're just good rugby players, so I'd expect they'll still be a strong team.
Sean Muir has led the home side onto the park. Trailing in behind was Kirk Ford, and sandwiched in between his 13 Hawick players, who will certainly have their eye on the double. It's been a few years since they've done the double, haven't they, Hawick, Nicky?
Yeah, just a few. Yeah, I think it's 21 years now. So yeah, it'll be nice to see them do it again if that's what happens.
They certainly start this game as heavy favourites. They're unbeaten so far in the league. Jedforest have won 6 games so far, lost 11. It's been an improvement off last year's campaign, but certainly still nothing to set the heather alight, where Hawick have been very impressive in all of their outings so far, scraping narrow wins on the road and putting teams like Curry to the sword, their nearest challengers. But that's league action. This is now the Scottish Cup, and the referee is about to get things underway with Callum Young with the right-footed kick going blind and test the wingers on the far side, and it was almost gathered there by Gregor Young, who was scampering up the touchline there, knocked it on. There's going to be a scrum down, and I think that is going to be Jed's tactics here, isn't it? Just to try and be a little bit unorthodox and play some rugby.
Yeah, I think they'll be a little bit inventive and try different things. I think, heard Jed's head coach there speaking before the game, saying about how their attack's been so prominent, and it's obviously something they're really concentrating on in terms of trying to get that accuracy and being a little bit different, because they're scoring a lot of points every game, but it's just the other side of the game. If they can tighten that up, and I think they'll have to be in this game today.
Gareth Welsh, the starting scrum half for Hawick this afternoon. Hector Patterson and Gareth Welsh vying for that number 9 jersey. He's just loitering at the tunnel of the scrum, just outside of his own 22 on the 5 metre line, and the two front rows collide and it starts popping in the middle, but the ball has been presented well to the back and it was distributed there to Ethan Riley, just a bit low for him to gather, and he's knocked on. So it's going to be a put into the scrum for Jedforest, and in the front row, Sweeney, Ferreira and Meadows are big operators, and in the boiler house as well, Wardrop and Skeldon. They've went heavy in the front row, and they want to try and match them up front at the set piece, because they know if that is the case, they do have the backs to cause Hawick problems.
Yeah, I think Jed have to get parity up front to be in the game, and I mean, Hawick have rotated their squad a little bit. They've still got Sean Muir starting, but they've brought in Rory McLeod and Ross Graham in the front row, potentially just as strong as the guys on the bench, but I think you'll see that the bench will come on, just after half time, potentially 50 minutes, and freshen things up. So I think the depth of the squads will be really prominent in the result.
Fotheringham breaking off the back of the scrum. It's gone blindside now, and it is Harry Meadows with his first real charge with ball in hand, taking play up towards the Hawick 22 now. Finlay Scott, he just distributes out the back to Callum Young, who passes an excellent ball, just dislodging the Hawick defence to the captain Skeldon, who's scampering towards the line, but just being marshalled well by the Hawick defence, who get back in numbers, and Fotheringham yet again gets there in support. And Jed early on here, 3 minutes in, being able to dislodge the Hawick defence, and Walker finds Callum Young. He spills the ball over to Gregor Young. He's got the cut there with Mason Cullen, who just dances back in field, but he's been well marshalled yet again by the Hawick defence. 10 tries to his name so far this season. Now Finlay Scott, he rides the first challenge of Callum Rennick, who just slips a tackle, allows Finlay Scott to make a few yards, and Jedforest now up towards the 5 metre line, and it's just went through the hands now, and Ross Graham has got the ball in hand. He's got open prairie, but Sam O'Neill, the referee, is going to bring that back for a penalty. In terms of the build-up play from Jedforest there, the referee is going to bring it back for a penalty, and I think Jed will perhaps size up their options before deciding, but impressive attacking play from Jed.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think you can see some good carries there by Clark Skeldon and Finlay Scott, staying on their feet and making line breaks early in the game. But you can see Callum Young's mentality. He wants to move the ball every time he gets it, so you can see Jed want to play and move the ball to the wider areas, and that'll play into the young brothers' strengths.
Perhaps not got as much of a zip on his pass off that left hand as perhaps off his right, but Callum Young is showing his rugby playing abilities, identifying that there was gaps there in the Hawick defence, and Skeldon burst through the line, but it was eventually well marshalled. What has been a really impressive Hawick defence all season. They've conceded 192 points in the league, which is the least points conceded by any team in the Premiership. Jedforest opting to go from the scrum for the penalty. The first attempt there is scrappy, so the referee Sam O'Neill is just having a little conversation with the two front rows and waiting for the teams to gather yet again. Been a couple of impressive carries from the Jedforest early on in the game. Ben Fotheringham, one of them. Also Skeldon. Harry Meadows getting his hands on the ball early on, looking to try and fight fire with fire. And certainly, when you're looking at the two teams there as they're sizing up, there's a stark difference in bulk between both of these sides. Hawick perhaps a more athletic and dynamic in their body types, where Jed have went for bulk. As the two scrums now collide together on the 5 metre line. Hawick defending.
When the weather's dreary.
And now it's a break from the back there from Fotheringham. He managed to palm off the first attempt, but he's going to be held up over the line. The referee Sam O'Neill just having a little look at that, but the powerful number 8 almost able to barge his way over the line and open the score in here, but that's well defended by Hawick.
Yeah, well defended. They've managed to hold them up over the line, but just in terms of Hawick's start, it's been pretty slow for them. They've not got the same bite in the collision as what they've had previously, and I think Matty Douglas, who on the side, getting some messages on they need to wake up a little bit or they're going to be behind. But they managed to hold them up over the try line there, which is good. But I think they'll need to wake up a little bit and get some collisions won.
The goal line dropout goes into the hands of Fotheringham, who's been a great addition to Jedforest as he carries the ball forward again. Finlay Scott acting as a auxiliary number 9 at the breakdown, and Shearer Gibb then offering his services up as well. Lewis Walker distributing from the breakdown. Now Scott throws the dummy, tries to get on the inside of the Hawick defence, and again passive in the tackle from the Hawick defenders and allowing Jedforest to steal a march on them. Callum Young riding the tackle, just twisting and turning out of contact. Walker finds Skeldon passes to Young. It's Gary Young this time. He's been coattailed there by Dalton Redpath, who managed just to hang on, just to stop any momentum in that move. Carry forward there from Andrew Sweeney, wearing number 2, and there was a big hand in there as well. There's the ball's again come back on a Jedforest side. The Youngs linking up in midfield. Gregor Young getting through. Lewis Walker under a bit of pressure from the breakdown, but it has come into the hands of Callum Young this time, who takes the ball forward. Now pick and go. It's Dan Wardrop who's seized on an opportunity there, 5 metres away from the Hawick line. Gary Young, he rolls out the first challenge, and Jed are inching closer and closer towards this Hawick line, and if the defence stays as it is for Hawick, that's going to be a dangerous couple of phases as Paulo Ferreira powers his way over the line. He had 2 Hawick players hanging on for dear life, and he made the bulk count there, just driving the legs, getting over the line, and there was not a lot of room to play with, but he managed to squeeze every last bit out of that pitch and get the ball over the whitewash, and it's deserved for Jed.
Yeah, really good start by Jed. Staying a lot of continuity in their tackle. They've kept the ball well there. I think it was well over 10 phases. And as you said, Hawick are fairly passive in the tackle. Jed carriers seem to be riding tackles, staying on their feet, staying square, getting over the gain line and putting them on the front foot. And the momentum's definitely with Jed at the moment. And they just looked after the ball, went out runners there, didn't really play anything expansive, and managed just to grind their way over the line there. So yeah, really good try by Jed and good continuity.
Paulo Ferreira is a talismanic front row, likes a try. Very often in that 5 metres away, he's seldom seen scampering in from the 22, but he's certainly a player that knows his way to the try line. Already got 7 tries to his name in the Premiership action, and you can dot one up for the Cup as well. And now Finlay Scott adds the extras, the back row, making the conversion count, an extra 2 points, and it's been a really bright start from Jedforest.
Yeah, and Finlay Scott there, who's kicked the conversions, had a really strong start. Every time he's had the ball, he's broke a tackle and got in behind the Hawick defence, which has put Jed on the front foot. So talked about him being a natural hooker, but he's playing 7 today and goal kick, and it just shows, that he's a talented rugby player.
Kirk Ford getting the play back underway, right-footed kick down and towards the Jed 22, and it's the first time that Hawick have been able to encroach in the Jed half this game. Although the ball is now in Jed hands as they look to try and get out of their own danger area. The ball is given to Callum Young. He tries to kick downfield. He's got the wind at his back, and Kirk Ford is having to watch that closely, but does well on the 15-metre line. He's got some support there, and Ronan McKean, who looks to just bundle his way over the first challenge there, but Lewis Elder does well. The ball presented back, and Welsh has to get there quickly to get the ball back on a Hawick side as Ross Graham looks to puncture this Jed defence. Welsh now finds Riley. Riley's got Sean Muir in some wider channels. Hawick looking to have a first real attack in this game and stretch this Jed defence. Now Andrew Mitchell takes a couple of players to bring him down. A very dangerous runner in open play. Callum Rennick bounces off his left foot, back in field, and makes a few yards as Hawick are going through the phases and testing this Jedforest defence. And now Ross Graham has got some support out there. He's got some space. He rides the first challenge again, and Lewis Elder, the winger, has been asked to defend on a couple of occasions here for Jedforest. Sean Muir's wrapped up well there by Ben Fotheringham. Welsh gets the ball back to Ford. Good link-up play in midfield there as Sean Fairbairn tips the ball on. Hawick takes the ball a little bit closer towards that Jed 22, but it's been knocked up on in the process. Sam O'Neill has spotted an infringement there. And I think Rooney McLeod tried to run an acute line off the shoulder of Sean Fairbairn. but just got a little bit congested. But that's a little bit more like what we're used to seeing from Hawick.
Yeah, good period of play by both teams. Hawick moving the ball from coast to coast, side to side, interlinking forwards and backs. Ross Graham looks prominent, doesn't he? He looks like he's got real hunger to try and get that starting jersey back off Fraser Rennick. But then also, on the back of that, some really good defence by Jed to hold them out. We've seen Hawick down here that have scored fairly easily against other teams, but Jed's defence looks pretty good at the moment.
There was a couple of times there that Hawick did look like they were really stretching the Jedforest defence, but they did cover the field pretty well, getting across the park to thwart any attack. As from the scrum, Walker finds Callum Young. He's got Gregor Young just trying to find a little space there in the stretched Hawick defence, but as Jedforest are dicing with death in their own 22, they are forced into an error there. And now looking to try and clear their lines, and it's just sclaffed off the side of the boot, and Rory McKean has now got a one-on-one opportunity with Elder. Finlay Scott is there in support. He just goes in between them, does well to present the ball back, and Hawick have sniffing an opportunity here. Callum Rennick has gone blind. He's got the support coming, and he'll need it to come pretty quickly to keep any sort of momentum in this move. Ethan Riley is a scrum half. Sean Muir pivoting at the fly half position to Kirk Ford, who's found Charlie Welsh, who's coming off the full back. Now Fairburn gets the ball through the hands to Lewis Ferguson, who is Hawick's top try scorer this season with 9 tries. The sting in this attack has come out slightly as Riley, instead of distributing, now opts to go it alone and try and niggle his way through the defence. Ross Graham taking the ball in a congested area and riding the challenge and making a good 5 yards there as well. Welsh has got some support outside. Mitchell just stands up the defence. Great offload. He's got Rennick in support back inside. And Dalton Redpath swans over the line for a score. And that was great play. And about 2 or 3 minutes ago, you were telling me about the importance of Ross Graham. Talk us through it there.
Yeah, Ross Graham, every carry he's had so far, he's dragged in about 2 or 3 at least Jed defenders. He's creating space for others, but he's also getting his hands free and getting offloads in there. But really good play there by Callum Rennick to go down the blind and then make that inside pass to Dalton Redpath, who he's relentless in his work rate, Dalton, isn't he? Dalton Redpath, he works so hard, and he gets his reward there by trailing the inside of Callum Rennick.
Great interlinking play from Hawick, and perhaps just what they needed to spark into life. They've been tested in these opening 13 minutes by Jedforest, but they reply 5 minutes after conceding the converted try. They're able to strike back, and Kirk Ford now has a conversion opportunity on the 22, just straddling in between the 5 metre line and the 15 on the stand side here at the historic ground of Mansfield Park, and he's bit that into the wind, but it is just grabbed it mid-flight and veered it in front of the posts. So it's an unsuccessful conversion attempt for Kirk Ford, and Jed maintain their lead. But this is Cup rugby, and this is, form goes out the window, and it's been an interesting start from both sides.
Yeah, there's been some good play. Both teams are out to play, that's for sure. We've got good conditions. It's not too windy. The pitch is fairly dry. It's a dry ball, and both teams are trying to move the ball and keep the ball in play, which is good to see. We've seen 2 really good tries so far with high phases, so it's been a treat so far.
Jedforest protecting their lead now as Callum Young gets the ball lumped downfield. It's been well gathered there on the straddling the touchline on that far side for Hawick, and Welsh has to get there quickly. Gives the ball to Rudy McLeod, who's back in the starting lineup this week, and he carries forward well, and he's done well to protect the ball as well. He managed to go forward, get some momentum. The cavalry did arrive, and Sam O'Neill noticed there was a penalty, but again, the likes of Rudy McLeod, who had his breakout season last year for Hawick, he was a mainstay in the Border League winning side. He's found starting appearances pretty hard to come by, and that does illustrate the depth of this impressive Hawick squad.
Yeah, Rory, he came onto our game a couple of seasons ago, didn't he? He had a serious leg injury, but he's got himself back fit now, but he's just found it difficult to get back in front of the experience of Nicky Little, Sean Muir, Tom Hope, these types of guys. So, they've got good depth in the front row, but it's good to see him get his opportunity today.
Front row replacements on the bench of Matty Carrier, Tom Hope and Fraser Rennick. Callum Rennick as well in the back row, who can equally play at hooker. So plenty of riches for Hawick to go for in the front row as from the line out. Hawick have got a scrappy maul going. It's gone to ground, and Ethan Riley then is tasked with just dragging it forward, and he tried to tip the ball on to Andrew Mitchell, just could not get enough air in that ball, and it never really rose above knee height for Andrew Mitchell to gather. The idea was there, the execution was missing, but it was a good opportunity.
Yeah, very good play by Ethan Riley. We've been impressed with him all season since he's arrived from Australia. And it's interesting to see they're using him slightly differently today. They're using him actually on the crash ball in a more direct line. They've tried that a couple of times, and you can actually see why in terms of that carry. He stays on his feet really well, gets his hands free, and it was just unfortunate that Andrew Mitchell never held onto that ball, or he would have probably been under the post for second try.
They've been a very impressive partnership. Grant Huggin, who's on the bench for Hawick, had started the season as Andrew Mitchell's preferred partner in midfield, and then the arrival of Ethan Riley, who made his debut against Selkirk in the Premiership at Philiphaugh, has dislodged Huggin from that position. So a lot of competition in this Hawick side as they're battling on two fronts. They win the penalty from the scrum. Sam O'Neill watching that set piece like a hawk and just judging that Jedforest had infringed there at the set piece. And this is going to be an interesting call for Hawick because it's Cup rugby, and I was wondering whether they perhaps would go for the post, but it looks like Kirk Ford is going to try and nudge this closer towards the Jedforest try line. Made a good execution with that. He's maybe about 7 or 8 metres shy of that try line, and we know that this driving maul is a weapon that Hawick do like to utilise. Yeah, they've scored a lot of tries through this year, so if we get accuracy to this line, I think Jed will get to be under a lot of pressure. Ross Graham just having a conversation with Sean Muir before they go through their repertoire at the line out. Jedforest on their toes. It's thrown to the tail there and well gathered by Connor Sutherland, and it's a counter drive there from Jedforest, who do really well to march this maul back. They've got to be careful that it doesn't twist and weave, but it's into the backs now, and Riley gives it to Mitchell, who does well to gather the ball, but eventually it's knocked on. Now into the hands of Mason Cullen, who just hoofs it downfield. It's over the 10 metre line into now the Hawick 22, the ball bobbling about, and Lewis Ferguson keeping an eye on that. But the referee has blasted the whistle. He's going over to his assistant referee, and they're going to have a little chin wag and discuss what's went on. The players been asked to disperse. The Hawick players now gathering in a huddle. The Jedforest players retreating into their area as well. And I certainly did not catch that, so I'm relying on you, Nicky, to see if you've seen it. I'm not sure what that is. I was just looking at Andrew Mitchell. I'm not sure it was a high tackle. It was him that was complaining towards the linesman. But Andrew Mitchell's, coughed the ball up a couple of times since he's had it. He just looks slightly off it in terms of his timing at the moment. But he's been such a dangerous player for Hawick. They need him on form, and if they can get him on the front foot, it makes a massive difference to the Hawick Park in terms of getting round the corner and getting some momentum. Is he off the boil, or are teams just aware of his threat a little bit more now? Because is his timing off, or is it the fact that the defence just have to be a little bit more alert? Yeah, I think the defence are slightly, aware of what he does, but I think, Hawick have maybe changed it up a little bit today as well in terms of Ethan Riley's doing some more of the direct work. But I think, if teams are aware of Andrew Mitchell in terms of how direct he's going to be and they're holding defenders on him, then there's decisions there for the distributors to make the right decision and pass the ball to where the space has been created because defenders have held for Andrew Mitchell. The referees bringing the two captains together. Stuart Graham is one of the players, and also Gregor Young have been asked to go forward and have a chat with the referee Sam O'Neill. He's certainly speaking to both of the captains and directing the conversation towards them, gesturing with his hand. I don't think that is Gregor Young actually that's been called forward, but it's a yellow card for Stuart Graham. He's been asked to leave the field for 10 minutes, so he's going to be given his marching orders. And the other player, I think, is Ben Fotheringham, who's been asked to leave as well. He looks like the player that has been withdrawn and given a yellow card. So they're both number 8s.
this game always brings a bit of needle, doesn't it? It's one of those border derbies, Jed versus Hawick, that there always is a bit of needle amongst it and a bit of back chat and having a go at each other, which is a good thing as well. It brings a bit of bite to the game. So I'm not surprised to see a couple of early yellow cards.
Ben Fotheringham has had a really impressive start to this game. 20 minutes gone and he's been at the forefront of everything that Jedforest have done well in terms of his attack and his physicality with the ball in hand. And Stuart Graham perhaps has had a quieter start, but is certainly at the forefront now as the two scrums come together. The referee just gesturing that there's going to be a free kick to Jedforest here, deep inside their own 22, and the referee signalling that the decision is going to go the way of Jedforest, and Callum Young kicks it downfield. It's not going to go out the field of play because Charlie Marshall is watching that. Now passes it to the try scoring machine, Lewis Ferguson, and he just tried to hot step it straight into a gap which closed very, very quickly. And Hawick going up the blind side now, looking to keep the ball in play and stretch the defence, but the assistant referee has just spotted that the boot has just graced the whitewash on that banking side here at Mansfield Park, and it's going to be a throw into the line out for Jed. But it has been a bit of a tetchy stop-start affair in the last 10 minutes, and I think it shows you how finely poised this game is, and certainly Jedforest are fronting up.
Yeah, there's a bit of bite in the collision, so there's obviously mistakes getting made, but both teams are trying to play, and they're trying to play that wide, expansive game, so there's going to be errors. I noticed, going down that blind side where Hawick looked dangerous, as Callum Rennick and Dalton Redpath tried it there again, and almost made a line break. So I'm not sure if that's a strategy that they've went into the game with, but both of them move like backs, and they're fairly mobile and quick. So they're good players to go to.
Scrappy line out there has gone to ground, and it's been knocked on eventually. It's going to be a put into the scrum to Hawick, and Hawick have not found things perhaps as easy as they have in recent weeks against opposition likes of Edinburgh Accies and Curry. The battle here between the two sides was close back in November. A 26 points to 7 victory for Hawick, and it's going to be a put into the scrum on the 10 metre line. The referee just bringing that back again as the forwards try and get the upper hand on each other. And both packs, remember, down to 7 men. Fotheringham and Graham in the sin bin after an off the ball incident. Welsh patiently waiting to put this ball into the scrum and get play back underway. I see that Connor Sutherland has just drifted back into that number 8 position to protect this ball if it's to shoot out of the tunnel. As Welsh pops the ball in. It's a solid scrum from both sides, again popping up in the middle slightly, but Welsh has got the advantage, gets the ball to Kirk Ford. Kirk Ford just missing out Riley on this occasion, and now Mitchell has found Lewis Ferguson. He bounces back in field, he beats 2 men, but Callum Young getting across the field well to make the covering tackle, and Redpath throws an ambitious ball. It's been gathered by Kirk Ford, plucked from the air, but he's been hit with a really stiff Jedforest shoulder. Sutherland just lurking in the fringes, takes the ball forward. Welsh looking to go blind, but he's been swamped by a cluster of bodies as it's kicked downfield from Walker. Ronan McKean's going to have to get his spikes on to get back here, as Welsh is looking to cover too, as Shearer Gibb and Gregor Young are back. A debut for Welsh, and he just mazes his way out of trouble. On the stand side, kicks it downfield, there's nobody home. It's a foot race here, but Mason Cullen is watching that back. The bounce of the ball is not kind for the fullback, and he's been hit with a huge challenge there from Dalton Redpath. It was very high, but difficult to control as Cullen pops off of the ground and takes the penalty quickly. He's been met with another stiff challenge there from Ross Graham, as plays up towards the halfway line now. The referee had gestured that there was a penalty, but plays on. Jedforest get the ball a little bit wider now into the hands of Wardrop. And from a pedestrian game over the last 10 minutes, it's now sprung into life. Gary Young carries the ball forward, but Jedforest have retreated in terms of territory. Meadows got 3 Hawick players clinging on to limbs of his as he carries the ball forward, but the referee has identified that the prop has got himself isolated. He's held on in the contact, and the penalty goes away at Hawick.
It's good few minutes there, after the game went into a bit of a stagnant few minutes in terms of quiet after the sin binning and being a bit stop-start, but Charlie Welsh there making a really good line break. He was like a bit of a young Stuart Hogg in terms of swerving rather than stepping past people, and a good kick chase. And then Mason Cullen on the other side, another young 15, quick tap penalty, and runs 30-40 metres up the field, so it's really lively, it's good to watch.
Quick couple of latest updates for you. Musselburgh 12, Highland 0 in the Cup round 1. Tim Foley and Bob Stott scoring tries for them. Watsonians 7, Melrose 7. An early Matt Pritchard try for Watsonians, but Melrose have come back there. And also we can give you Carlisle Coats 10, Peebles Coats 33. That is a full-time score.
Hawick now up towards the Jedforest 22, and it's been palmed back by Hawick out of the air, and the backs are now starting to get ahead of steam, and Andrew Mitchell just burst through the first challenge. He's one-on-one with the fullback, just not able to get over the line, but the Hawick support arrives in abundance to try and protect their centre and get that ball back. It's scrappy from the base, but Rudy McLeod just swarms on that ball and suffocates it, and the penalty is going to go the way of Jed. Hawick just not able to get the ball back on their side, and we did say that Andrew Mitchell was perhaps off the boil slightly, but he's now simmering slightly, because that was a great line and shows the physicality and the angle of running that he brings to this Hawick backline. Yeah,
as I said before, I think they are trying to use him slightly differently. They've got him sort of wide, one channel wider. I think normally he tends to carry on that first phase in the 12 channel, but he's certainly carrying the 13 channel today, and I think it's giving him a little bit more space and softer shoulders to attack, and you'd see it, the evidence there, in terms of you give him just half a chance, 20 metres out and he was nearly scoring under the post. He's such a strong, prominent carrier for Hawick.
Jedforest in defence, panicking but doing well to scramble their defence towards the young Hawick centre. Throw into the line out. It's been contested in the air, but has went the way of Jedforest as Young gets the ball out wide, but the referee has brought that back for a late challenge there. Hawick bursting out of the line out, tackling the man without the ball, and it gives Jedforest the opportunity to kick the ball downfield, get it back into the Hawick half, and try and pick off from where they started in the opening 10 minutes of this game.
Yeah, they've not had much possession recently. We've been under a bit of pressure, but I think they'll be really happy still to be 2 points up. Having the last 10 minutes has been mainly Hawick in possession, so they've defended really well, as their coach had alluded to in the start of the game. So they've got an opportunity here from sort of 40 metres out.
It's a line out which was gathered at the front there by Skeldon, and the players eventually managed to gather around the ball as Walker fizzes the ball to Callum Young, and on the wrap outside it was almost into the clutches of Andrew Mitchell, and I think he's just perhaps put the on-rushing Jedforest attackers off enough that the ball couldn't go to hand, which results in a knock-on, a put into the scrum to Hawick, but it was beckoning there for Andrew Mitchell just to pluck it out the air and counter-attack, but just not able to read the flight of the ball, and I think he's perhaps taken a sore one as well.
It could have went either way. Andrew Mitchell almost intercepted, and probably went the length there, but or it could have went to Mason Cullen, who did just get put off, and just his timing was off because Andrew Mitchell been in between him and the ball, so he could have potentially been scoring as well. So it was a bit of a 50-50, but the ball ends up being fumbled, and it's a Hawick scrum.
Just waiting a bit of time for the scrum to start, because a little bit of miscommunication there, because Stuart Graham and Ben Fotheringham were back onto the field of play, and then told quickly to get back off and get their jackets back on, because their 10 minutes is not up yet. And now Hawick, as both teams have 14 players each here on Borders Rugby Radio, we've got 10 minutes left of this first half, and it's currently Hawick 5, the visitors Jed 7. Welsh pops the ball into the scrum, sizes up his options and gives it to Ford. Ford gives it to Riley, and Riley gives it to McKean in space. He's got Riley back inside, but he opts to just go straight over the top of Mason Cullen. The fullback just got his body in the road. It's been tipped on there by Callum Rennick. Hawick managed to gather the ball back on their side, digging about in the breakdown is Welsh to get the ball back to Mitchell. Mitchell now finds Sean Muir. He straightens up the line, looks to scythe his way through this Jedforest defence, but he's been well defended there. And Ford gets the ball in relatively an easy position for the fly half, and the ball just rolls down his chest and it's back into the hands of Jedforest. And now Callum Young, a grubber pass if you will to Gary Young. He's going toe to toe now with Callum Rennick, and Dalton Redpath is there to support the back row. Jedforest looking to get out their own 22, and Finlay Scott, a player who has been everywhere for Jedforest so far. And now Robbie Shearer Gibb wrapping round. Thinks he spotted a gap in the Hawick defence, and a big arcing run bears fruit on this occasion because he has made some inroads. Jedforest settle and kick downfield, and it's got Charlie Welsh out unawares there, but he's spotted a little space, and an expletive comes out the mouth as he is not happy with his clearance effort, but his pressure on the retriever is good enough to put Jed in a dangerous position. Centre field, they've got the ball back, and they're having to work hard to try and get some continuity back in this phase of play. Offloaded on the far side. Jedforest players linking up well as Ferreira and Scott now get to the breakdown to protect, and through the hands now Young into the hands of Wardrop, and another arcing run into the heart of the Hawick defence. Centre field still, and it's gone loose. It's bounced and ricocheted off of Glenn Welsh into the hands of Callum Rennick, and the referee is going to bring proceedings to a close, but it is getting very, very scrappy.
OK, we'll just dip in here because there's been a try at Netherdale. We can go now to Robin Purdy.
And just as you join us, Stuart, there's been a second try. The second try going to Glasgow Hawks. The first try to Gala, however, on 2 minutes. The burly figure of Tim McCavanagh crashed over from close quarters after lovely hands a couple of times in the build-up by the talismanic figure of Ewan Dodds. That try was converted to take it to 7-0, but like I say, Hawks have hit back here with a try by their winger Ross Darroch. That's his 8th try of the season actually, in the kicks to come. And Scott Tomlinson joining me in the commentary box. It's been an electric start to this game, Scott.
Yeah, Gala just started off really well last week against Kelso. First scrum of the game, and they went wide, and some excellent hands by Ewan Dodds a couple of times and put Kavanagh in under the post.
So as we await the Hawks conversion here, Henry Lapsley, their fullback, looking to even things up, and he's done exactly that, has Lapsley. So early action here at Netherdale. 3-4 minutes gone. It's Gala 7, Glasgow Hawks 7.
Hawick now looking to play out of their own half as it's been kicked downfield from Jedforest. Certainly looks like another intriguing cup encounter at Netherdale, and it's been a great kick there from Ronan McKean. I just wonder whether he was inside his own half, and it has been adjudged that that's a 50-22, and that is the sort of thing, as we approach the last 5 minutes of this first half, they're the sort of things that can turn the tide in games.
Yeah, excellent work there by Ronan McKean. But you can see from Jed, like, their ambition and their intentions to try and outplay Hawick and outrun them. They just tend to kick, like, just when their attack is either stalled or they run out of numbers. It seems to be their last resort to kick the ball. They want to try and playing a lot of rugby in their own 22, and they just can't seem to get away from there at the moment. You know, Hawick may be on the other side, a little bit the opposite. They like to kick for the corners, play some territory where your Jed are trying to overplay a little bit.
There's obviously been a lot of changes in both sides, but perhaps one of the noticeable changes in the Hawick side is Ford at 10 and in the absence of Kyle Brunton, and that is something that perhaps as the game goes on we can look at in a little bit more depth, because it seems to have broken a little bit of the continuity perhaps that we've seen of Hawick so far this season. But it's a great kick from Ronan McKean, who is now just loitering in behind Kirk Ford and Ethan Riley as the throw into the line out is successful from Hawick and Ross Graham. The driving maul just twists right and then straightens up, and it's got a little bit of a dig in here and a little bit of momentum as it crabs towards the posts. Welsh has just spotted that the sting has come out of that maul as the changing of angles from the Hawick backs allows Andrew Mitchell to burst towards the 5 metre line. Now Sean Muir throws the dummy, just runs straight into the arms of a awaiting Paulo Ferreira, who was grateful that he didn't go either way. And now link up players. Ford just spills the ball over the top there. Riley looking to try and get his arms free, not able to, as the Jedforest players swarm around the ball. It's been stolen in there as well from Jedforest on the floor. Great defensive work from the visitors as they're looking to try and make it to half time. Still in the lead, Callum Young clearing inside his own goal area. He manages to kick it clear, and that's an impressive kick, but there was numbers up there for Hawick, just not able to execute. Riley not able to get his arms free, but perhaps from impressive Jedforest defence.
Yeah, it's a try-saving tackle and decision there by Robbie Shearer-Gibb in terms of stepping in. I think he had 3 attackers to defend there, but he stepped in, made the right decision, just cut off the attack with Ethan Riley getting man on ball. So really good defence there by Robbie Shearer-Gibb.
It's going to be another throw into the line out, and Hawick will be wary of the confidence that Jedforest will feel if they can make it to 40 minutes with the 2-point advantage, or at least a lead of any sort. But the line out is accurate yet again. Ford passing out the back to Riley out the back to Ferguson, who perhaps was a little bit flat, but it has went into the hands of Stuart Graham, but the referee is going to bring that back for a knock on. And for some reason the Hawick backs at the moment just not able to click.
Yeah, there's just a little lack of cohesion there in terms of, just timing slightly off. There is changes, obviously. Welsh has come in at 9, and then you've got Kirk Ford at 10, so it's a change in 9 and 10 from Hector Patterson and Kyle Brunton. So, they're probably getting used to those positions and getting used to each other a little bit as well. So the time is just slightly off, and, there's uncharacteristically a couple of balls just going to deck.
Lewis Walker, the Jedforest number 9, just waiting to pop the ball into this scrum. He wears the number 9 jersey after an impressive showing off the bench last week. He made his debut for Jedforest in the Kings of the Sevens last season, and he's a very impressive player. But from the scrum, he can do little about that, Lewis Walker, because the referee is adjudged at the front row. We're infringing at the scrum there. He's having a conversation with Andrew Sweeney and Hawick as we say, approach the last 3 or 4 minutes of this first half. We'll be looking to etch their noses in front as Kirk Ford from the penalty, just in front of the halfway line, kicks it towards the Jedforest 22, and they'll need to make it click and get these bring back that league form, because at the moment it's certainly missing.
Yeah, I think as well we need to look at the conditioning of the Hawick players compared to Jed. You talked about earlier the size of the Jed pack compared to Hawick's. They probably are slightly bigger, but I would say the Hawick pack's potentially a lot more athletic and a lot more conditioned than the Jed pack. And then I think the depth of the bench coming on will probably be prominent as well, in terms of we've got Jay Linton to come on, we've got Fraser Rennick as well. So I think towards the end of this first half we're starting to see the conditioning starting to have an effect.
Callum Rennick was deployed from that line out, but it's been a forward pass, and I wonder if Paulo Ferreira's nutritionist would argue with your point there, Nicky Walker, but I'm sure I actually agree with you, so it's fine. It's certainly something that Hawick have not been able to do. They've not been able to stretch this Jedforest defence as much as they perhaps did in their last encounters, and Jedforest missing a lot of players as well, are playing a smart game.
Yeah, I would say Hawick's not asking a lot of the condition of the Jed players in terms of when they've got ball in hand, but Jed have just overplayed in their own half because they're trying to play so much from their own 22. That front 5 are going to feel the effects of that in terms of having to get round the corner, work really hard to get their hands on the ball. So they're almost slitting their own throats a little bit in terms of overplaying. Where I'm sure that front 5 want to play on the front foot, just as Lewis Walker's done there, try to play the ball down into Hawick's 22.
Welsh gathering debut for the young fullback, and he kicks it downfield, and it's Clark Skeldon, just watching that fall from the sky, and he gets it under his spell. But Welsh did well to put a bit of pressure on him as Callum Young notices a space in behind, but Lewis Ferguson almost gathered that, but just couldn't keep his eye on the ball as the on-rushing Jedforest defence was gathering round him. He's knocked it on and given the ball back to Jedforest in an attractive attacking position. Offloaded to Young. Young now offloads to Young, who offloads to Skeldon. Skeldon now back to Owen Cranston. He straightens up the line and takes it forward. Now Callum Young Passes a flat pass there to Andrew Sweeney. A big, tall and robust front row. Lewis Walker slowly gets the ball away from the breakdown as Callum Young now has to gather that bobbling ball and distribute it. He just notches it on one and then has to pop in at scrum half on the Hawick 22. A little bit of go forward here as Gregor Young now takes it forward, and Walker into the hands of Wardrop and charges forward, and Jedforest finishing this first half the way they started it, inside the Hawick 22, camped deep inside, putting the home side under a lot of pressure, currently protecting a 2-point lead as we approach the half-time whistle. Slowly but surely, Jedforest getting closer to that line, but Ross Graham has just stolen that on the floor. And now Hawick looking to go from deep into the hands of Welsh. Welsh is giving it to Ford on the wraparound, and McKean just kicks it downfield. It's over the halfway line and it's bouncing and bobbling about there for Mason Cullen, who feeds it to Shira Gibb. Two players who certainly know their way to the try line. They've got 19 tries between them, linking up well in a deep area. Shira Gibb having to play scrum half. Passes it to his captain Skeldon, now passes it to the experienced Gregor Young. He goes back on the inside and almost out the back door there to Mason Cullen. Sean Muir was clutching on the coattails there, and Gregor Young almost got his hands free to release Mason Cullen down the touchline, but has just drifted into touch, and that was dangerous yet again from Jedforest.
Yeah, when the game breaks up like that and there's a bit of counter-attack, Jedburgh look dangerous. It's like, you talk about their sevens expertise of Gregor Young. Mason Cullen looks a dangerous player. Callum Young obviously a good sevens exponent, so Hawick don't want the game to get into that broken, loose game, because that's when Jed look at their best, and they almost scored there with a pass out the back door from Gregor Young to Mason, who just struggled to keep a hold of the ball and it went into touch.
Jedforest certainly thrive in open field action and loose rugby. Been involved in a lot of high scoring encounters so far this season. They've scored 444 points but conceded 541. More often than not this season they've been on the wrong side of the result, but certainly put some impressive performances together. It's from the scrum, it's just went into the clutches of Kirk Ford, and you can perhaps hear the shrill of the referee's whistle as he brings proceedings to a close. And it's certainly not been champagne rugby from both sides, but it's been, as expected, it's been a close, tetchy border encounter, a couple of yellow cards and a couple of tries, and the only thing really separating these two sides, who have got a try apiece, Paulo Ferreira with the first one, Dalton Redpath with the one for Hawick, the only thing separating them is the 2 points from Finlay Scott's boot for Jedforest as they go into half time, and it's Hawick 5, Jedforest 7.
Thank you very much indeed to Nicky Walker and to Dale Clancy. Quite an exciting one, a very strong wind out there. Of course, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the second half. I can bring you up to date with some latest scores. Gala 10, Glasgow Hawks 7 is latest score, an earlier try from Kavanagh and a penalty and conversion as well, adding to their total. Hawick 5, Jedforest 7 is the half-time score here in the Cup. Also in the Cup, Musselburgh were 12-0 up. They're now trailing Musselburgh 12, Highland 14. Tim Foley and Bob Stott getting early tries for Musselburgh at Stony Hill, but then it was Magnus Henry getting a quick brace inside a couple of minutes. So the National 1 team winning at the Premiership Club, Musselburgh 12, Highland 14. It's Watsonians 7, Melrose 17 at half-time. A couple of tries for Melrose, including one by Struan Hutchison. David Colvin getting a penalty as well after Matt Pritchard put Watsonians ahead. We can go to Scrammerston. It's Berwick against Hamilton. A big match for Berwick this afternoon. Here's Mickey Yonota.
Early stages, still no score, and Berwick off to their usual slow start. So you get the feeling that Hamilton, if they need to pile on the points, if they can, they have to do it early on. So far, though, it's Berwick 0, Hamilton 0.
Thank you to Mickey Yonota. It's Kelso in front against Dundee at Poynter Park. Liam Herdman, the returning Liam Herdman, getting the try, which was converted by Dwayne Patterson. Well, let's go to Netherdale. 10-7 the last time we'd heard. We can bring back in Scott Tomlinson and first of all Robin Purdy.
Thank you, Stuart. Yes, it remains Gala 10, Glasgow Hawks 7. Gala in a good attacking position here though, with a line out 10 metres from the Hawks line. It's been overthrown however, but it's been gathered in by a Gala player, and they're now up to 5 metres out. piling the pressure on here, Gallagher. A penalty coming, so a free play. The referee blows his whistle. Now there's a kickable penalty here, Scott Tomlinson. What would you be shouting from the touchline here?
Commentators curse. I wouldn't like to say. I mean, Gallagher's certainly putting it ear to ball. They're certainly throwing it about and asking questions of that Hawks defence. Just an overthrow in the line, which was kind of their failing last week at times. It'd be interesting to see. They're going to tap it, I think.
Yeah, they're going to tap it, as seems to be fashionable at the moment. It's the hooker, Eason. He's held up just short. It's come on this near side, and they've crashed over here, Gala. It is another try to take the scoreline to Gala 15, Glasgow Hawks 7. And Scott Tomlinson, we've got a cup tie on our hands.
Yeah, they're playing with real confidence. Gala playing with a smile on their face. Craig's does having a wee chuckle away there to themselves. They're certainly not overawed by the Hawks pack. They're showing a lot of really good defence early doors and stifling that Hawks attack. So it bodes well. I think that if Gala can stay within the fight this afternoon, and the crowd get behind them, they're certainly in with a really good shot at a win today.
They are. And Scott, you've been head coach at Premiership level. Is the gulf that big between the teams that are, arguably off the pace in the Premiership at the moment, the Hawks, and the better teams in National 1?
Yeah, I enjoyed the game last week. It was a really good border derby. Kelso was kind of keeping it under their jersey, whereas Gala were playing an expansive rugby game. Today I think it's about Gala defensively, if they can keep to the pace of the game and fold round the corner, look after, pick up the men and make their tackles. I think Gala will be within it. I'm enjoying watching both First Division and the Second Division just now, and just seeing if there is a gulf. At times I don't think there is. I think there's a lot of really good players. Certainly in the Gala team this afternoon, there's a lot of really good players that can ask questions of the Hawks team, certainly.
Yeah, well, there's certainly no gulf in the standard of goal kicking, as Craig Dodds has slotted the conversion from the 5 metre line on the near side here at Netherdale. So that takes us out to Gala 17, Glasgow Hawks 7, in what could be classed as an upset. Gala from the division below, obviously. 20 or so minutes gone here. Glasgow Hawks attacking the Ferrydean end, and they kick off through their standoff. Callum Harrison taken in, knocked forward rather by Gala, so another chance for the Hawks to come. The burly hooker, Cairncross, the experienced hooker, takes the carry. Harrison feeds back inside. No, it's intercepted there by Ewan Dodds it was, but they're going to go back for the knock on. And yeah, both teams having a crack here.
Yeah, they're physical, that front row in the Hawks team. They're all about the same size and the same shape. They're built like fridges. And just asking questions, running down that channel of Craig Dodds. But Craig's stepped up to play a couple of times already and put in some really good hits along with John Turnbull. So I'm quite impressed with Kavanagh, that moved from kind of centre winger into the back row the last few weeks. He's certainly putting himself about already, and it's only 20 minutes into the game. So along with Ewan Dodds, that's certainly the talisman is certainly been playing well, certainly last week and this afternoon. Yeah, both Doddsies going well so far, and Kavanagh, you're absolutely right. He loves the contact side of the game, and he's revelling in the 6 shirts so far this afternoon. The scrum has came back on the Hawks side, but it's been knocked on by the scrum half, Eric Davey, and it's going to be possession to Gala. And you mentioned, Scott, about Gala staying in the fight, but they're doing more than that at the moment. Yeah, they're making far too many mistakes, Glasgow Hawks. You'd expect it from a Premier Division team, 30 metres from the line to be able to hold their own scrum. That certainly wasn't the case there. Lachlan Johnston put a lot of pressure on his opposite number, and we've got a good turnover now. It would be interesting to see Gala, the vein of form that they've been in, and certainly in the back division, they've been having a go from their inside their own half numerous times, and they're now inside their own 22. It's where they'll try and attack some edges on the far side of the field, or whether Craig Dodds will put it down in the field. Oh, and it's shot out the back of the scrum, so scrum half Lachlan Johnston's had to put it down the park. That's been fumbled at the back again by the Hawks winger, but he's going to run it out. It didn't go forward, so a chance for Hawks to come from deep now, and they've got men over on this near side. That's a good man and ball tackle, however, by the Gala winger Andrew Mitchell. That was almost essential there. It looked like they were going to be in the ascendancy even from far out, Hawks, as they continue to bludgeon their way up the middle of the park, and they've got a penalty coming here just inside the Gala half as their prop Mike Downer feeds out, and they're playing with a free ball here, Gala. And again, it's the hooker, the barrel-chested hooker Paul Cairncross, who often crops up in the loose, but the referee's going to bring them back.
for the penalty. Oh no, there's another penalty being given here, almost equidistant between the Gala 22 and the Gala 10 metre line, and the assistant referee is on. Assistant referees, of course, taking part in cup games, and it's Chelsea Gillespie having a chat with the referee, who today is Callum Lazenby. What might that have been regarding, Scott?
And I think it was maybe Kavanagh with a no arms tackle, but I might be wrong. It was interesting, that scrum, the ball squiggled out the back of the scrum, and James Glendinning tidied it really well. And I think it was James Glendinning that put a really good grabber kick all the way down the bottom of the field. He's a talented laddie, this boy, James Glendinning.
Yeah, we spoke about him prior to the game, Scott, and he's a hooker playing in the back row at the moment, but you wouldn't, watching him, you wouldn't think he's playing out of position.
Yeah, the game last week against Kelso, I mean, he had McNeil against the young pretender in Glendinning, and Glendinning had an excellent game. Not your out and out normal kind of number 8, but certainly when he gets the ball in his hands in the out and outskirts of the field, he can cause some real damage. And I would say he came away the better player at number 8 last week, which is pretty impressive for a 17-year-old against McNeil.
Yeah, it certainly is. And there's a Hawks player being carried from the field here, which is sad to see, and I think that looks like their blindside wing forward, Lewis Stewart. Now that is a blow for the Hawks. The last time we on Borders Rugby TV seen the Hawks, or one of the last times, it was at Glasgow last year against Hawick, and he was absolutely outstanding on that occasion when the Hawks blew Hawick away effectively.
Yeah,
so
he's a big blow. He's a really good player for them, so augurs well for Gala, certainly, but he's in a bit of pain there, isn't he?
He is indeed, as he departs the scene. It is currently Gala 17, Glasgow Hawks 7.
Thank you very much indeed to Robin and Scott up there at Netherdale. We can go direct to Scremiston. Here's Mickey Dinotta.
Early stages, still no score, and Berwick off to their usual slow start. So you get the feeling that Hamilton, if they need to pile on the points, if they can, they have to do it early on. So far, though, it's Berwick 0, Hamilton 0.
Tries from James Brown and Struan Hutchison and a penalty from David Colvin mean that Melrose have the upper hand in this match at half-time. But it was Watsonians who scored first in 6 minutes from Ben Heber. So at half-time here at Mireside, it's Watsonians 7, Melrose 17.
OK, let's go through some more scores for you. Aberdeen Grammar 12, Stirling County 19. Aberdeen, of course, bottom of the table in National 1. Stirling much a little bit above them, but in the cup it's 19-12 at half-time for Stirling County. Still waiting on Biggar and Heriots Blues. Gala 17, Glasgow Hawks 7, Hawick 5, Jedforest 7. At the break we'll be rejoining Dale and also to Nicky Walker very shortly. Musselburgh 12, Highland 14 is a half-time score at the moment, and Kelso have now 2 tries, 14 points to 0 against Dundee. That's in the National 1, and in Premiership at the moment it's Curry 3, Mar 7. Let's return to commentary here at Mansfield Park. It's Hawick against Jedforest, and rejoin Nicky Walker, and first of all Dale Clancy.
The teams are back out on the field of play, and the sun has come out of absolutely nowhere here at Mansfield Park, and it's now gracing what would be about 75% of the pitch, because the stand is just dwarfing part of the field here and keeping that under shade at the moment. But in the sunlight just now is Kirk Ford, the fly half for Hawick, and he's going to get the second half underway, and it's Hawick who trail the visitors in the first round of the Scottish Cup by 2 points. It's as it stands, as the second half gets underway, it's Hawick 5, Jedforest 7. And it's been a long kick downfield there from Kirk Ford, and it's put Jed under a lot of pressure as they've had to kick into what is a biting wind here at Mansfield Park, and they can't get out their own 22. And this is kind of the way that Jedforest started the first half, and Hawick are looking to try and take a bit out their copybook.
Yeah, I think so. I think Hawick will just be looking for a bit more accuracy. I think they looked dangerous in the first half, as Jed did as well, but just drop balls, too many errors, and I think they'll just try and tighten their game up in the second half and try and get a bit of momentum on the scoreboard.
No evident changes, and it's thrown to the tail of the line out. Sutherland does well, and Welsh has now found Callum Rennick, who's just shot through the defence and now arcs his run, and he is over the try line, and that is an excellent response from Hawick after what was a flat and tepid first half. They have come out in the second, and they've got proceedings underway with a bang, and it's Callum Rennick who's got the opening score.
Yeah, good to you. Callum's been a good player again today for Hawick. You know, he's industrious in his work rate always, you know, but it's just showing his pace and his mobility there in terms of getting in behind the Jed defence and then to step the last man and get close to the post on for that try there. Excellent play by Callum Rennick. Good work.
It's gut-wrenching for Jedforest to put in a power of work in the first 40 minutes and then to relinquish their lead after a minute and a half of the second half underway. But it does show you the characters of this Hawick side as Kirk Ford just nudges the ball over the uprights and splits the kindling and gets the extra 2 points, just almost chipping it over there. And on rushing Mason Cullen was trying to put the kicker under a bit of pressure, but he was unflappable there when he was kicking that conversion. Adds the 2 points. Hawick 12, Jedforest 7, and we've got a bit of a turnaround now. Now Callum Young kicking the ball central down the field and into the hands of Kirk Ford, and it's a right-footed kick and a hefty one at that into Ben Fotheringham, and he's starting to go through the gears, and now he drops a gear and tries to go back in field over the 10-metre line, but a little bit more robust and intense defence there from Hawick as they have to drift because there's number up on this side. Meadows takes McLeod for a little bit of a journey as he's having to latch on, and Rennick almost spotting the chance for an interception there. Bursts out the line again, and he's a player that's looking to perhaps set the tempo and set the standard in this second half, and he's come out with a lot of intensity, just not able to gather the ball when Jed were looking to ship it wide.
Yeah, Hawick have come out the tunnel looking a bit lively, haven't they? You know, the line speed's a little bit better. Really good kick chase there as well, putting Jed under pressure. A little bit more bite in the collision. You know, I think they've obviously been told at half time, and there's a few messages went to them, and they've come out and looked really good since coming out the tunnel.
No evident changes on either side as the scrum is watched by Sam O'Neill, and he gets proceedings back underway just inside the Jedforest half as they play towards the clubroom end here at Mansfield Park. Central scrum, and it's away from Fotheringham. Straight into the hands of Cranston. He just charges forward, and perhaps the momentum of his carry has took him beyond the support and into a position that he found it really difficult to get the ball back on. And Welsh is looking to go quickly from the penalty, but Cranston, a lot of endeavour and intent, but the execution was a little bit off there.
Yeah, just one of those, another error. Looks like Kirkford's got to go for the post here from the halfway line, which is interesting. You'd have thought they'd have maybe kicked a touch, and you know, because of the try they've just scored off a line out. But you know, they're taking the 3 points. They've got to try and keep that momentum going on the scoreboard. You know, and this will be a big kick if he gets it from 45-50 metres. He's just getting set up for the kick now, but it's an interesting call because the wind is at his back. It's going straight left to right here from hurtling over the club room end, but it's a stab to nothing because if this goes dead and it carries, it's still a goal line dropout, and Jedforest have to kick into what is a pretty strong wind. But a right-footed kick from Kirk Ford, just a metre or so central inside of the Jed half. If you're visualising it, it's pretty much blob on the halfway line, and he kicks it, and it's a low, piercing effort, and it has gone the distance, and that's an impressive kick there. Keeps the scoreboard ticking over. It puts a little bit of a gap, and an awkward gap at that, in between the two sides, because it is now more than a converted score is the difference. It's now Hawick 15, Jedforest 7, as John Storey is going to come on to the park. He is going to replace Harry Meadows. There's going to be a replacement there in the front row. Yeah, I've just been watching Jed's front five since they've come out half time, and they have just been plodding about and looking like they're a bit flat and a bit tired. I don't know if that first half took a lot out of them, as we talked about, but I think Jed are trying to make some subs now, but then I think Hawick's bench is looking lively as well, and they're eager to get on, so I think they'll get rolled on pretty soon and make a big impact. It's Andrew Sweeney who's been taken off because Harry Meadows is just opening his legs up on the stand side here, but he's guddled the ball, and Sean Muir throws the dummy into the hands of Ross Graham, who gives it to Callum Rennick, and now into some open field as they go a little bit further forward through Andrew Mitchell, and he's got some support there. Gareth Welsh looking to go quick, but with the wind at their back, you would imagine that Kirk Ford is just going to
try and stick it in the corners now and pin Jed back, but it's been a really impressive 6 minutes out of the sheds for Hawick. And as you say, yeah, the introduction of John Story is perhaps to look to try and keep a little bit of momentum in this game, as we can go to Stuart Cameron for some updates of the scores around the country.
Yeah, let's go to Netherdale.
Yes, you rejoin us here at Netherdale with the score tied at 17-all. A couple of quick fire tries for the Hawks, one by their open side wing forward Seb Hastings, the second from scrum half Eric Davey, neither of which were converted from kickable positions. So Gala very much still in this, but Scott Tomlinson, the Hawks just starting to exert their authority.
Yeah, they are, and Gala will be disappointed. They've scored some excellent tries, but then every time they score, Hawks go back up the other end of the field and score a try. What we'd say is a very easy try to score, a very soft try. So Gala, it's something Gala will need to grab a hold of the game and get this all back in the right areas of the field and start exerting a wee bit of pressure and forward dominance.
Yeah, good cup tie here, 17-all, Gala v Glasgow Hawks.
Now Hawick are on the attack here from first phase ball. Off the line out, they stretched this Jedforest defence, and now they're into the Jedforest 22. 5 metres from the touchline on the stand side, about 15 metres away from the Jedforest try line is Callum Rennick. Hurtles himself into contact yet again. Ford now stretches the ball a little bit wider into Andrew Mitchell as he's just been brought down to ground with two Jedforest defenders just clutching round his waist as Ford goes a little bit wider, spots a little gap in behind, stabs it forward. And the gathering Jedforest defence are there, but it looks like the bouncing ball has evaded Mason Cullen and Ben Fotheringham. And I think Connor Sutherland is the man getting the plaudits, and it's a score for Hawick. And this is a monumental turnaround from the first half. It's very Jekyll and Hyde from Hawick, but this is certainly the better version of themselves. It stretches their lead now, Hawick 20, Jedforest 7.
Yeah, it's that accuracy that we talked about at half time. You know, Hawick have just shown that they've not made any errors yet in this half by the looks of it. You know, and they moved the ball wide there. Charlie Welsh down the 50-metre channel. He's looked really dangerous all afternoon. He's having a great game. Made some inroads into the Jed defence, and then they've moved it to the other side of the field with Andrew Mitchell making a big carry up the middle of the field under the post, and then they just go down the left-hand side down the 50-metre channel, and that spacing behind's been there all day. Mason Cullen maybe a little bit inexperienced at 15, probably more a winger, and you know Kirkford spotted that and put a kick in, and you know Hawick have been first to it to get over the try line.
Stab with the right foot there, and it's curled round in between the posts there for Kirk Ford. Another conversion attempt stretches Hawick's lead now, and they are a team in the ascendancy. A little bit of a gap in between the two, perhaps not as close as the game at Netherdale, and we'll keep you updated on that game throughout proceedings here. We've got half an hour left in this round one Scottish Cup clash between Hawick and Jed. It's Hawick 22, Jedforest 7. Tom Hope and Fraser Rennick are now on the park. Jay Linton as well, by the looks of things, is back on the field after a return from Australia. A slightly golden Jay Linton as Hawick take the ball forward. It was almost straight down the throat of Linton there, but just not able to gather the ball. Ben Fotheringham, who's just dropped back into a fielding position when they're defending a kick, and takes it forward, and the big paw just palming that ball back and presenting it for Jedforest to try and go through the phases. An outburst from the Hawick technical area for something, but Jedforest finding things a little bit more difficult in their second half to try and breach this defence. This is a different Hawick side, a different force that they're fighting in this second half. Defence is a little bit more intense, but a player that can certainly unlock a defence is Callum Young, and he's done just that. Gets from the halfway line over the 10-metre line centre field. He's been dragged to ground and offloads, goes through a couple of phases, and Jedforest are now playing the advantage because Lewis Walker is digging about in the ruck trying to get the ball back. The sting perhaps out of this passage of play. The defence for Hawick is now set again, spread across the pitch. Gregor Young running a tight line there, just straight into Fraser Rennick. Walker gives the ball to Callum Young, and he's got Harry Meadows offering himself up for a carry, but just the ball drifting behind him, not able to gather it as Ben Fotheringham wants to take this quickly, studs on the ball, taps it quickly and just goes through the gears and takes it straight up into the faces of the Hawick defence, up towards the 22. He had to be met by a couple of Hawick defenders there to stop any momentum and take the take the contact on their terms, but as the phases go round the corner towards the banking side, the Jedforest players getting slightly isolated. The penalty has been given, and a little bit of lip as well, because Sam O'Neill is marching 10 metres closer towards the Jed line. And even defensively, in terms of the points that Hawick have been able to put on in the second half, it's been impressive. They've been able to come out and score 15 points. Another 10 metres, Jedforest have been marched back. I can see Ferreira and Skeldon are two players there. I don't know who the guilty party is, but defensively, back to my point, Nicky, is defensively Hawick have looked a little bit more assured of themselves.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit more bite in the collision, offensively and defensively, to be honest. Bringing guys on like Fraser Rennick, Jay Linton's got to make a big difference to that as well. I've been really impressed with Dalton Redpath all day in terms of his work rate and the lead into that pack. If you see him, he's at the forefront of everything in terms of physicality, kick chase, and everybody else seems to follow him. So, I think, Hawick look like a different team this second half, and you can see the frustration coming out, getting marched back 30 metres there, Jed. I think Jed's front five are starting to tire and get frustrated, especially with the way they try to play, take quick taps, playing from everywhere. It just doesn't suit them, doesn't suit their shape, to be honest.
Hawick goes short from the line out. They feign the lifter and just go to the front and go blindside. Now into the hands of Hope. Welsh is protesting with the referee that the ball is not coming out cleanly, but the referee has swayed the way of the Jedforest team. Gives the penalty for holding on, and Tom Hope, who was taking the ball forward, is guilty of clutching onto the ball for just a little bit too long. Jedforest now can clear their lines from their own 22. Callum Young, who's had a reasonably decent game at fly half for Jedforest, kicks it downfield into a full frontal wind anyway. He does make some good ground. And Finlay Scott, the back row for this afternoon's fixture, is going to throw it into the melee of players as Jedforest are willing their way back into this game and trying to find the recipe that's going to give them at least a say in the battle in the rest of this game, because at the moment they are trailing Hawick in the first round of the Scottish Cup. But down the bank inside, Jedforest now go up towards the 10 metre line. The defence again is strong from Hawick, but the referee has just illustrated that they're not releasing the tackler. Another penalty comes the way of Jedforest, and they can etch their way down the field a little bit further.
Yeah, just a lack of discipline there from Hawick, but you can see again the evidence of that strong bench coming on. Fraser Rennick's obviously got the bit between his teeth. He's trying to keep that starting jersey that he's got. He's obviously come off the bench today with Ross Graham having such a strong game, but I think he's put in 3 really dominant hits. Finlay Scott carrying the ball there, who's been really strong in the carry all day and actually making good carries against the Hawick defence, but Fraser Rennick just put him flat on his back there, so he's obviously really hungry to make inroads in this match.
Finlay Scott again to throw into some challenging conditions, the wind just rippling the flag at the side, but Young now got the ball in his hands and into the hands of Elder, who weaves his way out of trouble and then back into trouble, and he's dragged down to ground, and Callum Young taking the ball to the line into Harry Meadows again, and then players just hurtle themselves in. Jay Linton was one of them, almost torpedoed himself into contact. Welsh digging about for the ball. He's got Riley in the pocket, who's just Matt Gitto-esque, just sat there waiting for the ball, head cap on, and punts it downfield into the 22. And this could be, well, it wouldn't be a 50-22 because it was passed back into the half, but the assistant referee has illustrated that it is a 50-22, and Dale's wrong.
Yeah, I think the pass was just made just inside Hawick's half, and then a really good kick by Ethan Riley, who's got a lovely left foot. I think that's a big strength of Hawick, having a left-footed and right-footed kicker where he can really isolate Mason Cullen at 15s who can't cover both touchlines at the same time, obviously. So picked the right option there, and Ethan Riley puts in a lovely kick down the left-hand side.
We've got a flavour of how cold this wind is, but perhaps not how strong the wind is, because certainly Jedforest were using it to great effort in the first half, and Hawick are doing equally as much now. Is now off the line out. Jay Linton is thriving with ball in hand as he charges forward towards the Jedforest line. Kirk Ford having to turn as he gathers the ball now into the hands of Ronan McKean, working hard off his wing. He's got some players outside him, but opts to go alone. The support is there and the ball is coming back on the Hawick side. Welsh travelling with the ball, now finds Ford. Ford's got Sean Muir, who's looking to just go through the gap but can't gather the ball. It's now back on the Jedforest side, 5 metres away from their own line. Sam O'Neill has watched that, and Lewis Walker has spotted a little opportunity to breach the Hawick defence but not able to. The referee is going to bring that back, but again Hawick doing well to stretch the defence as Elliot Lauder is going to enter the fray for Jedforest as a replacement.
Yeah, there was potential for Hawick to score off that first phase there if Ronan McKean had actually made the pass to Charlie Welsh. He had 2 men outside him against 1, but he managed to hold on to it. He kept the ball, retained it really well, and it come back across the field. And then I think that's the first error Hawick have made in this half. I think Sean Muir took his eye off the ball a little bit, expecting a big hit, and just fumbled it, and it's been knocked on under the post. So scrum 10 metres out from their own line for Jed under their own posts.
It's going to be an interesting scrum because Elliot Lauder has come on for Harry Meadows. There's been some replacements in that front row. It's a central scrum inside the Jedforest half. If Hawick want to try and put a little bit of pressure on, now is the time as it drives inwards on this tight-headed side for Hawick, and Callum Young now breaking from his own 22 up to the 22 metre line. He's been stopped short there, and Lewis Walker is looking for some support. He does find it in Mason Cullen, little pocket rocket looking to try and just weave himself under the flailing arms there of the Hawick defence. Jedforest do have numbers up, but they're drifting wide, and it's just been passed into touch there. And there was numbers up. It's drifted off the field of play. And we can go to Stuart Cameron for an update on some results.
Yes, latest scores: Aberdeen 12, Stirling 19, Biggar 0, Heriots Blues 33 at half time, which is some score. Gala 17, Glasgow Hawks 17 at the moment. It's Hawick 22, Jed 7 here, of course. Musselburgh now running away with it against Highland. It's 33-14 to them. Kelso 19, Dundee 0. They've got 3 tries, looking for that try bonus, and Melrose have a try bonus. They're leading 27-12 at Watsonians.
Fraser Rennick throws it into the line out. Dalton Redpath is hoisted highest and does well to gather it. The maul is well set and itching its way forward towards that 22. It's perhaps not got the momentum that Hawick were hoping for, but Welsh is there and Fraser Rennick is protecting that ball at the tail of that maul. Welsh now got the ball, gives it to Ford. Ford gives it to Riley, who cuts back in field, now offloads to Mitchell. That arcing run, if he can evade this challenge, they're in for a score, but he's been well gathered there. A big spilled pass out there to Stuart Graham, who's going to bounce back in field and go over for a score. It was perhaps not the planned try scorer there after the link up between Riley and Mitchell, but the offload off the deck from Mitchell was superb. The awareness of Welsh was brilliant, and the finish from Graham was excellent as well. A great score from Hawick.
It's superb execution from Hawick, really good play. Great line break by Ethan Riley initially, who gets his hands free to Andrew Mitchell. Again, that's something that we see quite a lot. But good defence, scrambling from Jed, who pulled Andrew Mitchell down, and then Welshie moved the ball well to Stuart Graham there to score in the corner. But where that try comes from is Jed playing out of their own 22, just not exiting the ball, and their front 5 are knackered, as we keep talking about, because they're overplaying, and then from that they end up conceding a try.
Definitely, just as Stuart Cameron was giving us a rundown of the results, just to the right hand side of me, Nicky Walker was protesting about the game plan of Jedforest, and it's played straight into the hands of Hawick, and the conversion attempt from Kirk Ford has not drifted through the uprights this time, and the strength of the wind was illustrated as he passed the tee back to the tee boy who's come on with the kick in tee for him, and it just floated in the air for about 5 seconds before he could gather it. The strength of the wind here is certainly playing into the hands of the home side now, where they've got it at their tails. A replacement in the front row yet again. Sean Muir has been withdrawn as Matty Carrier is going to get a run out at loose head. He will now lead the side. As from the kick-off there from Callum Young, it's just went out on the full, so it's going to be an early introduction to the scrum for the club captain Matty Carrier, and it's a completely new front row now for Hawick, with Carrier, Fraser Rennick and Tom Hope, with Jedforest of John Story and Elliot Lauder, and also Paulo Ferreira still in there as well. The last man to get to the scrum, Paulo Ferreira, he certainly had a very eventful first hour here at Mansfield Park, but the pace that Hawick are now injecting into the game is perhaps not playing into his hands. And it's going to be a centre field scrum here for Hawick, and they're waiting the backs in the split, 3 on each side. And now Welsh goes to the stand side and forward. There's a wrap round here with Linton just lurking in behind. It's been stabbed through. Mason Cullen has been asked to defend this. He kicks it downfield, but it's just been held up in the wind. Matty Carrier gathers it. He looks to just go over the top of Mason Cullen, but he does well just to get his arms round his legs. No mean feat. Now into the hands of Sutherland and Fairbairn. He straightens up the line. He goes forward as the Hawick support does get there, and Welsh distributes to Hope, who's lurking in the wider channels, looking to try and stretch again this Jedforest defence, but he's been guilty of rolling with the ball in hand, and he gives away the penalty just when the momentum was starting to build into that Hawick phase of play.
Yeah, I think done for rolling there. The referee has stopped and started the game a little bit. You have to give a bit of the benefit of the doubt to the attacking team there, I would say. I don't feel that was a penalty against Hawick. Yeah, it was almost that he was kind of caught in the, his body was caught in that. He either had to roll one way or the other, and he's picked to roll towards the Jed line, and the referee has deemed that an infringement. So it's a couple of penalties that Tom Hope has given away since he's come onto the park. And surely not blotted his copybook too much in the eyes of Matty Douglas, the head coach of Hawick. But from the line out, Jedforest do well to gather that. Gregor Young deployed from his outside centre position on an acute line, asked to unpick this Hawick defence, but not able to, as again the gaps which are evident close very quickly, and Hawick scramble to get that ball now out the back to Riley. Riley has got it into the hands of Kirk Ford, who gives it to Ronan McKean. He kicks it downfield, and now it's just a bouncing ball, and it does bounce over the touchline inside the Jedforest 22, because it was a very dangerous opportunity there. Yeah, really good turnover by Hawick there in the midfield. Jeds just can't seem to keep a hold of the ball at the moment. They're trying to play out of their own half, sometimes out of their own 22, and they're just it's just really difficult for the moment. And then Hawick look really dangerous on the turnover.
Throw into the line out. It's again contested in the air, and it's both players hurtle towards the ground, but the referee has allowed play to continue. Jedforest now just playing in the shadows of the trees on the far side, which are swaying with the wind. It is a very strong wind here, going straight into the faces of the visitors. It's backs against the wall stuff here as Callum Young casually kicks it downfield. Doesn't even get out of his own 22, the sheer strength of the wind there. It lands halfway up the banking, and it's still about 3 or 4 metres inside the 22. And Jedforest in the first half did play up front used the forwards to good effect, but in this second half, with the wind in their faces, they're trying to play out from their own 22, but it's a completely different Hawick side.
Yeah, I think the wind is having a factor, but I still think the wind's not strong enough to not kick the ball. It's just that Jed aren't setting up to kick. It's just they're kicking when they're finished with it, and kicking loosely. I think they can set out to kick and actually get the ball further up the field to release some pressure on their forwards, but the forwards having to work so hard at the moment to just contain Hawick and get themselves outside the 22, and then it just means that Hawick are getting the ball back 20 metres out.
Kirk Ford just gives it to Ronan McKean. Ronan McKean has got some space on this far side. Charlie Welsh was there in support, and now Kirk Ford has spotted a little gap. He dribbles it forward. He's been pushed into touch as well, and it is going to go dead. And it was a chance there for Hawick to stretch their lead. A little conversation with the assistant referee and Sam O'Neill, the referee in the middle, just asking if there was any foul play, but it is going to be a 22 dropout. And again, another chance there for Hawick, another chance to stretch their lead and cement their place in the second round. A visit to Rayburn Place, I believe, awaits the winners of this tie. Enbraki's getting a bye into the second round. Jedforest kick central from the 22 dropout. Jay Linton is lurking in behind, and he just powers through the first couple of challenges there. Welsh spills the ball across. It's bobbling about over on that far side now, and on the 10 metre line it's ground to a halt. There's been a knock on there. There's going to be a put into the scrum for Jedforest over in that bank inside. Now we can get an update perhaps from Netherdale as well and see how things are going for the Maroons.
Quick update first of all from Poynter Park, and Kelso do have the try bonus now. It's an Alan Frame try to make it 26-0 against Dundee. Watsonians 12, Melrose 32, a James Brown hat-trick, and we'll go down to Gala very, very shortly, but the are we? In fact, yes, we can just quickly go down to Gala. Netherdale, last we heard it was 17-all at half-time. Robin Purdy.
Yeah, and we're not back underway at Stuart. It remains 17-all. That's the way the teams went down the tunnel, and it was a good first half. There didn't appear to be that big a gulf between the Premiership and the National 1 team, but we await the teams for the second half. It remains 17-all.
27 points to 7 it is here at Mansfield Park. It's got about 15 minutes left in this game. There's been a replacement as well, as young Aidan Bambrick has come onto the field of play. He is deployed at scrum half, and his first task is to put the ball into a Jedforest scrum, which is charging forward. Now Callum Young finds Elder. Elder tries to get the ball into Gregor Young at the same time, but he's been met with a stern challenge, and Hawick almost broke free, but they were offside from the set piece. Sam O'Neill has awarded the penalty, and that is a big territorial gain there, perhaps, from the way that Elder got the ball in between the halfway line and the 10-metre line. They've now got the penalty central field, just outside the 22 from the offside. And it's going to be an interesting decision to see what they're going to do, and I think that they're going to opt for the scrum, which is perhaps, on the balance of what we've just seen in the last set piece, is probably the smart choice.
Yeah, I think it's the right choice. I mean, this is probably the first time Jed have been in Hawick's half in this game now in the half. So, we're 28 minutes into this half, and they've not managed to have any inroads in Hawick's defence at all. So I think they're looking for a bit of respite, a bit of release of pressure for their forwards, and can hopefully get on the front foot for them.
Bambrick pops the ball into the scrum central field. That more Jed backs on the stand side than over in the bank in, as Cranston gives the ball to Young, who was ghosting back inside but not able to really take contact on his own terms, as Hawick gather the ball back, and now Charlie Welsh helping out his brother at scrum half. Ball kicked downfield, and if this goes out over the 22, it's going to be a brilliant kick, but it's been well juggled there by Mason Cullen, and now he's got his skates on, and he's just been wrapped round by Fraser Rennick, and up top he was scythed down to ground by the Hawick defence. Bambrick has been body slammed there by Matty Carrier, just lurking round the fringes. And now the players digging about there. Callum Young gives it to Gregor, and Gregor Young's been met with some challenges yet again. Hawick defence a little bit different in the second half, as Jay Linton looks to wrestle the ball from the clutches of the talismanic Jedforest outside centre. Jed throwing the ball a little bit wider, stretching the Hawick defence, not able to really breach it, as Matty Carrier again puts in a big challenge, this time on Elliot Lauder. Finlay Scott, he's been met with another couple of challenges, and that's 3 or 4 tackles in the last 2 minutes, which Jedforest have been looking to try making inroads and been driven back, but a cute offload there from Gregor Young to Clark Skeldon does dislodge the defence. Now Wardrop into the hands of Fotheringham. Now Bambrick linking up with Callum Young. Now Gary Young, who's stretching his legs on that far side on the bank in at Mansfield Park. 27 points to 7 in the first round of the Scottish Cup here at Mansfield Park. 10 minutes to go in this game. It was a game which Jedforest were leading 7 points to 5 at half time, but a big half-time team talk from Matty Douglas has painted a different picture here, as Grant Huggin splits the defence, looked to try and offload. It's fallen into the boot of Ross Graham, who's kicked it downfield into the 22, but Mason Cullen yet again is having to launch an attack from deep inside his own half. He's been a player who has stood out, as you can certainly see his class even in this second 40 minutes here, when Jedforest have flattered to deceive in periods of this game. Another good tip on there from Jedforest, again into the hands of Elliot Lauder. Now Callum Young throws a big ball out to Robbie Shearer-Gibb, the slight winger, and he's just been met with another solid challenge from Fraser Rennick. The physicality that has been brought off the bench has proved vital in penning Jedforest back inside their own half. They've failed to breach the Hawick 10 metre line, even though they've had the ball for the last 5 minutes. Now the ball has been passed into space, but nobody was there. Owen Cranston having to sweep up, and Fotheringham there as well. Jedforest asking a lot of questions of this defence, and now Gregor Young, he certainly rolled back the years there and managed to just ghost inside the defenders over the halfway line. Now the ball's going loose at the breakdown, and Shearer-Gibb is tasked with trying to sweep that up. Charlie Welsh is all over that. The ball is spilled out the back. Now Aidan Bambrick sweeping up, he floats the ball into the hands of Skeldon. Skeldon has got Lauder in support. The offload not going to hand there, but Gary Young sweeps it up on his own 10 metre line. Now an arc and run. He's just found the weight and forearms of Carrier, and the penalty goes the way of Hawick, and that was a relentless 5-minute period from Jedforest. Attack. Couldn't make much inroads until they did break free, and eventually all that they get from it is giving away a penalty to Hawick.
Okay, and there's an injury, so we can go to Netherdale. 20 points to 17, I believe. A penalty. There's Robin Purdy. No, it's not Robin Purdy. OK, we'll go back to him, but I can confirm there was a penalty there. But let's go to Scremiston. Mickey Unotta.
Berwick well on top. 2 early tries in the second half. Jordan Thompson and Duncan Hardy, neither converted. Bear in mind, though, Hamilton are weakened. Only 3 of their players are first-team regulars this afternoon. A lot unavailable today, but all credit to Berwick. They lead 34 points to 3.
Let's try again at Netherdale. Robin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Stuart. First blood to Gala in the second half penalty, and a reasonably long range penalty at that, kicked by Craig Dodds. Takes the scoreline to Gala 20, Glasgow Hawks 17. We're about 2 minutes into the second half.
Thrown to the line out for Hawick now, as they are looking to certainly cement their place in the second round of the Scottish Cup, and Jay Linton just charges it forward into Ben Fotheringham, and he bounced off the number 8. A battle of the number 8s there, a position that Jay Linton will be wanting to try and retrieve after his return from Australia. Ross Graham, another player who just likes to play direct rugby, uses athletic ability and his physicality on the opposition. A difficult ball to gather there for Jay Linton. It was man and ball. He did well to gather it, but the players now coming together, and I'm just wondering who's won the sweepstake. That it was 75 minutes before there was a coming together of these two teams, but it was well gathered by Jay Linton, but the defence had read that and knew it was coming, and it's maybe just more of a sign of frustration from Jedforest than anything else.
Yeah, a little bit of a hospital pass from Gareth Welsh there to Jay Linton, who read the tackle pretty well considering the pass he got, but obviously just not liking the collision there that he got, and there's been a bit of afters. But just going back to, you've got to admire Jedburgh's endeavour and ambition to try and play, but they just don't seem to have a plan B. They've kept the ball for 4 or 5 minutes just previously and didn't even get to the halfway line, and then get turned over, and before they know it, they're back in their 22 under pressure again. I think the forwards will be looking at Jed's backs going, what are you doing? Come on, put us on the front foot.
It's been a sign of Hawick's play so far this season. They have tactically played rugby in the right areas and really frustrated oppositions, and I think that perhaps is a sign of the frustration that Jedforest are feeling here in this second 40 minutes. We've got 5 minutes left here at Mansfield Park. Hawick 27, Jed 7, and it's a throw into the line out. Fraser Rennick is going to be throwing in, and it's Redpath being lifted at the front. The maul is well constructed yet again as Skeldon looks to swim his way through. Fotheringham is another player there who's using his arms to good effect, but Welsh has spotted a little gap, and Ethan Riley, who only got his first try for Hawick a few weeks ago, is just caught short. Welsh now gives the ball to Mitchell. He's taken a standing start, but just powers his way forward off his feet, and now Rennick looks to try and gather that on his toes, but it was a scrappy ball from Welsh anyway, under a bit of pressure. The knock-on has come from Hawick. It's going to be a put into the scrum to Jedforest, and this is another tired effort from the Jedforest forwards, who have put in a really big shift, but not as accurate as perhaps Hawick would have liked it at that set play.
No, not quite as accurate. There was a couple of loose passes from Gareth Welsh, who's just stalling the attack a little bit, Not quite as quick as what it's been in previous weeks, and potentially past just slowing the carriers down, which has given Jed the opportunity to put in some dominant tackles. But they've still got Jed under pressure here, underneath their own posts.
It's a central scrum, so to kick clear it's going to be difficult if they're going to go at the first attempt, because the wind will grab that ball mid-flight as Welsh puts Bambrick under a lot of pressure, and I think that it looks like Ross Graham has got his paws on the ball. There's another player there who was hot on their heels, and I think the other player was perhaps Jay Linton. There's a few flaps in the back, so it's either going to be Ross Graham or Jay Linton with the try, but that came from the pressure from Gareth Welsh, who perhaps had brought the previous phases of play to ground to a halt. It was good pressure on Bambrick and good awareness from the back row.
Yeah, you could see that Gareth Welsh was a little bit angry with himself, because of the poor pass previously, so he's took that frustration out on the back of Jed's scrum there and put really good pressure on and made amends for his previous area. And then as we've seen all day from the Hawick's pack, first on those second balls on the floor, and rushed through. I think Ross Graham might have got his fingers to it.
Yeah, I think Ross Graham has been awarded with that score. I think it was just a matter of who shouted the loudest in celebration over the try line, and Kirk Ford adds the extras as well, so we can probably confirm that Hawick are going into the second round of the Scottish Cup. All they need to do is navigate through this remaining 3 minutes here at Mansfield Park. It's going to be 3-time winners over Jedforest so far this season, as Shearer Gibb looked to flap the ball back from the restart. He has done just that. The referee has adjudged that it has not drifted forward, but the ball has been ripped from the grasp of Jed as they look to wrestle closer towards that Hawick 22, and it's just been knocked over in the act, and it's going to be a put into the scrum for Jedforest on the stand side here. It's still Hawick 34, Jed 7.
Let's go to Scrammerston. Berwick on fire this afternoon.
Aidan Rosie down the left-hand side with Berwick's 8th try. A fine work move across the 3 quarters. Unfortunately for Rory Hindhoff, he's only converted one, but he did score a splendid try in the first half. Berwick 44, Hamilton 3.
It's all over at Mireside. It's Melrose who have won with a try bonus and a hat-trick for James Brown. Watsonian 17, Melrose 32.
From the scrum, it's going to be a penalty, and Ben Fotheringham has taken it quickly, and Jedforest will be wanting to finish with a flourish. They started this game off in impressive fashion. They maintained a lead for about 38 minutes of the game, so 32 minutes of the game, sorry. But that attacking phase is ground to a halt, and Shearer Gibb and Charlie Welsh are now having a foot race down the stand side as they chase the ball and try and get some inroads yet again. And Charlie Welsh was trying to catch onto the end of a Dalton Redpath hoof downfield. Shearer Gibb, the covering defender, but it is off the field of play now. It's going to be a throw into the line out, and it's been a good outing for both sides. They've been able to illustrate their squad depth, but perhaps even for Hawick to give some of the players that have been playing force rugby a little bit more of a run out as they start to approach the dying embers of the Premiership campaign too in the business end. Yeah,
it's been good to get guys like Charlie Welsh playing, Rory McLeod, Grant Huggins now on the field as well. So you can see the real depth that's been built in this squad by Matty Douglas. Some real competition for places going forward, and being in both competitions, real contenders for the Cup and the League. I think that's got to be important from now until the end of the season. Maintaining the form in both competitions will be pivotal, and also maintaining personnel, because the injury list and the absentee list from Jedforest is a little bit longer than what the home sides have had before this game. So battling on two fronts is never easy, as Dalton Redpath puts a little bit of pressure onto John Storey as he gathers the ball. He took the ball at a bit of a standing start, so not able to make a real impact on that phase of play. Now Harry Meadows, who is back on the pitch, he's just bounced off Matty Carrier, and he eventually finds himself in some trouble. And it was an interesting collision between two probably of the most rotund players on the park, and certainly just stood up to each other. But Meadows got himself in the wrong position there. It's going to be a penalty to Hawick. They can kick downfield, and I think even at 34 points to 7, which Hawick currently lead, if they were to get another score, you would perhaps say the scoreline would flatter them slightly. Even at 34-7, it perhaps flatters them. But with the performances that Hawick have put in so far this season,
you wouldn't put it past them getting another score.
Yeah, I think, I don't think Hawick will be really happy with the accuracy they've shown today, but in terms of the defence intensity they've shown, especially in the second half, it's really played into their hands in terms of, the way Jed have tried to overplay from their half, and I think a lot of the tries that Hawick have scored today have come off the back of, Jed's strategy and their errors, rather than Hawick being industrious in terms of their execution.
Linton tries to get the ball at the tail of the line out. He just managed to get his fingertips to it, but it's just squirmed out of his grasp. It's now on a Jedforest side, and Gregor Young does find Mason Cullen, who's looking to just hitch kick his way out of trouble. Perhaps if he'd put the afterburners on there, he might have put a little bit more pressure on the cover and defence, but he's been marshalled well over that far side. Jedforest now centre field. Young, who's fallen towards the ground, manages to keep his foot in, does get it into the hands of a supporting player. Bambrick finds Callum Young again. He spills the ball over to Clark Skeldon, who's had an impressive afternoon, the captain, a player who perhaps gets better and better every year. Now Matty Carrier stole that. He's got it straight into the hands of Connor Sutherland, who rides the first challenge. Andrew Mitchell looks to sweep up the ball, but it's been a knock on, and the referee Sam O'Neill is going to bring proceedings to a close, so it ends in a bit of a whimper for both sides. They never got much scoring towards the tail end of the second half. It was certainly a tight first half as well between the two sides. A first half which Jedforest had in the ascendancy. They were leading 7 points to 5 at half time, but in the end it is Hawick who are victorious. They're into the second round of the cup, and it was a performance of two halves, Nicky. Hawick not impressive in the first half. Jed went about their business very well, but the coin flipped in the second 40, and you perhaps can't argue with the result.
Yeah, I think the story of the game's the 29-0 in the second half to Hawick. They come out straight from the second half whistle and scored that early try with Callum Rennick, and the momentum just never changed for the whole of the half after that. I think Hawick will be not overly pleased with their performance overall, but they've got the job done again, and it shows. I think the benefits are they've played some other players that have not played a lot this season, and shown that they're head and shoulders above most teams when it comes down to playing here at Mansfield.
Still undefeated this season in national action, and it is Hawick who progressed to the second round of the cup. They've got a trip to Rayburn Place that awaits them later on this year, but it's tries from Ross Graham, Dalton Redpath, Connor Sutherland, Callum Rennick and Stuart Graham for the home side. Paulo Ferreira got a try for the visitors, but in the end it finishes here at Mansfield Park. It's Hawick 34, Jedforest 7.
Thank you very much indeed to Dale and Nicky, and Hawick progressing to round 2 of the Scottish Cup, where, as Dale said, they will meet Inbrackies at Rayburn Place. By the way, Melrose already have a bye into the second round where they travel to meet Curry. Selkirk will be at home to Musselburgh. We now have a full-time from Stony Hill. It's Musselburgh 40, Highland 21. Kelso have a home tie against either Heriots or Biggar. Heriots 33-0 up at half time, so I think you can safely say Heriots Blues will be visiting Poynter Park, and Dundee await the winners of Gala against Hawks at Mayfield, where we'll be returning very shortly. We'll also be having some post-match interviews very, very shortly when the two teams from Hawick and Jed come out of their huddles. But I can tell you that it's Aberdeen 12, Stirling 19. That's the latest score. Biggar 0, Heriots Blues 33 was a half-time scoreline. Still waiting on the full-time to come through on that one. Musselburgh 40, Highland 21 was the result. In the Premiership, the only Premiership game being played today, it's Curry 13, Mar 7. That kicked off at 2 o'clock, so half an hour to go in that one. Kelso 31, Dundee 0, with the bonus point there. A couple from Liam Herdman. Dwayne Patterson got a try as well. Alan Frame and Bruce McNeil. So 5 tries for Dundee, for Kelso, should I say. And Kelso will be victorious in that one, just waiting on the full-time score. It's a full-time score at Mireside. Watsonian 17, Melrose with a bonus point 32. Berwick 44, Hamilton 3 is the last we heard. Livingston 15, Hawick Lindeen 7 at half-time. That's another game being played at 2 o'clock. And Dumfries 7, Falkirk 19 in National 2. I think that brings you pretty much up to date at the moment. We can go down to Netherdale for a couple of minutes and find out what's going down there. Gala had the lead the last time we'd heard. It was 20 points to 17. Come in Scott Tomlinson and Robin Purdy.
And it remains 20 points to 17 Stewart, but Gala very much in the ascendancy here. They have an attacking line out maybe 12 metres from the Hawks line, and you have to say it's been all Gala in this second half, but they've lost the line out sadly, so Hawks with an opportunity to exit here. Gala now attacking the Fair-Eading end, and it's, as I say, it's been all Gala in this second half. Ewan Dodds in particular has been instrumental, and young James Glendinning very much coming into this game as well. But Hawks now with their big forwards trundling it up over their own 22, and there's a penalty coming the way of the Hawks, so they're playing with a free ball here, and they're going to try and run this. McGroarty's on the field now, the big Glasgow Hawks centre. They've taken it up to almost the 10-metre line, still looking to play here with a free ball. It's been chipped through by McGroarty, but the referee's going to bring them back. And Scott, Gal have been impressive in this second half.
Yeah, they've pretty much played how they played last week against Kelso. They certainly started off the second half throwing the ball about. They made two excellent offloads by McCaverty earlier on, and then we had a really good break by Glendinning down this blind side here. He made a lovely chip as well, so he's shown really good skill set. I think that Gala, if they just continue to stay in the game and play in the right areas of the field, certainly we've just seen the fullback kick again for the touchline. He's been absolutely horrendous today.
Yeah.
Kicking from hand.
The kicking from hand, you're right, has been absolutely appalling from the Hawks. There's 3 penalties that have been snap hooked effectively in golfing terms, and you don't see that all that often from the hand, and the Hawks have produced 3 of them. They're going to get the line out almost in line with where it was kicked. It's going to be thrown in by Paul Cairncross, who you have to say is probably been Hawks' main operator today. He's been impressive, and the Hawks line out has functioned well. Gala's line out less so, and Gala, if we're being critical, have probably been on the wrong side of the referee so far in this game. There's 17 minutes of the second half gone. Hawks line out, and that's gone right to the tail to their number 8, Oscar Baird, who's taken that in cleanly. And now they come round the corner. McGroarty again has had 4 or 5 carries since he entered the fray about 5 minutes ago, so they trundle it up to the halfway line. Their South African prop Mike Downer to the fore there. Hawks with their first meaningful possession really in no real territory in this second half, but what they do have here they're making yardage with. Oh, and it's been dropped however by the hugely experienced prop Gary Strain, but another penalty's been given against Gala, and you can probably hear what the crowd thinks about that. And Scott, these penalties are starting to rack up.
They are. It's disappointing because Gala's been doing really well at Jacqueline over the ball, and they've been in this sensei in this second half, taking the penalties and Dodds kicking them over. But that's been the first set of play that Hawks have been in the Gala Shields half. They now kick it down maybe 10 metres from the Gala Shields try line.
Yeah, so it's going to be a Hawks line out. That was a better kick to touch by Gav Cruikshanks it was that time. He appears to have taken over the kicking duties, and somebody had to, let's be honest about it. But it's going to be another Hawks line out. This, as I say, is their first territory of any note in the second half. So they attack the factory end. Over on the far side, throw in again goes to hand, and again it's Oscar Baird, the number 8. Hawks looking to drive this forward. Gala, of course, looking to resist it, and it's Cairncross at the base. Cairncross has got a scrum off Eric Davey. They're weighing up their options. Davey's got hands on it now, appears to be going nowhere, so Davey puts it out to Cruikshank. Now that's a loose pass, a bouncing ball. It's been taken by Lapsley, the fullback, and Lapsley's got his arms through the challenge there. But he's been held up. Hawks now up into 22. It's Cruikshanks again. Cruikshanks has got Pinkerton on the cut, but that's a big hit. Was their arms in the tackle? The referee seems happy enough. It was John Turnbull. Now it's Cairncross again. Hooker, that's been impressive this afternoon. He offloads to Tom McTeer, maintaining possession here, Hawks, although the Gala line looks to be reasonably strong. Seb Hastings, one of the try scorers, the back row man, again takes it in, and that's a more good defence by Gala. They've managed to offload that, Hawks, and this time boot has been put to ball. It's been grubbered down the touchline, and they just run out of options there.
They're under a lot of pressure, Hawks. The Gala defence is really strong, putting some big hits in, asking questions on the Jackal situation as well, so that's tiring the Hawks Park out, and they're not working round the corner at all. They're lacking options when it comes to the 10, looking for options, and Gala frustrating them, and that's exactly where we need to be. 20 minutes played, 20 points to 17 in Gala's favour, and we are in the wrong end of the field. There's no doubt about that with Gala, but they're soaking up the pressure, and it certainly doesn't look a a difference of maybe 10 to 15 teams.
No, as you say, for all that they frustrated the Hawks there, Gala, they're still camped fairly deep within their own 22, and they're going to have a line out from which they will attempt to exit. And they've used the bench pretty well this afternoon so far, Scott. Cammy Pate has put himself about since he came on.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, and there's still a couple of good quality players in the Gala Shields bench as well. Obviously, Murray Wilson's back on the field for Cameron Pate. So Murray's a good, strong centre player. Obviously, we'd really like to see Russell Kerr get a bit shot as well. He sat on the bench all last week at Kelso. He's a good young player as well, under 18 player, and we'd like him to get a shot. But I mean, there's that much at stake as there was last week again. As we see Jack Eason just going off the field just now. Jack's played really well the last couple of weeks I've watched him play, so that'll be a bit of a blow for them as well.
So defensive line out to Gala. We'll hand back to you, Stuart. It's Gala 20, Glasgow Hawks 17.
Thank you very much to Robin and to Scott. We'll be returning to Netherdale very, very shortly, but at the back of the stand now we have the victorious captain of Hawick, Sean Muir. 34 points to 7 it ended here in the Scottish Cup round 1, so a trip to Edinburgh Accies on March the 25th, I think it is, and Sean Muir is with Dale Clancy.
You're a bit late. We've pretty much just done it off air, but Sean, a great win for you. It was obviously it's important that you get into the next round of the Cup and continue your performances that you've shown in the league, but it perhaps never got off to the best start in the opening 40 minutes.
Nah, look, 40 minutes for us was pretty disappointing, but the conditions played a big part. It was a strong wind we played into, so going in and then was it 7-5 down at 40 minutes, we would take that. We knew second half we would get a reaction and we'd play the conditions. But the performance first half's probably not where we've been the last few home games.
Yeah, defensively you perhaps weren't, as you were against Curry in the weeks that we've seen you before, and obviously Edinburgh Accies, it was just the physicality perhaps wasn't there, and was that more a reflection of the physicality that you got from Jedforest? Were they maybe just a little bit more up for it in the opening 40?
Aye, fair play. Jed came out and put us under pressure. They've got a few big lumps in that team, and we struggled to deal with it, and not going to make bones about that, but second half we fixed that and the boys came out and showed what we were defensively.
It was a much improved second half. It was a lightning start from Callum Rennick's try, and it kind of set the tone, and then you went and reverted back to the kind of form that we've seen you play in the league campaign so far this season.
Nah, exactly. Look, we got the kick chase for the kick-off, got the line out, Callum scores. You couldn't ask for a better start, and then Kirky nudges a 50-metre penalty and the game's changed. You're way in front. So look, it's a start we wanted. We've made no bones about it. The league's our priority, but I think a good team wins one. But I think if you want to be remembered, you have to try and win them both. So we want to win every competition we're in.
And in terms of the game that we've just watched there was a lot of new faces, a lot of faces who have perhaps been reintroduced to the team as well. How important was it that you can get that squad depth, get actual physical games in terms of top level opposition in Jedforest ahead of what's coming ahead of you in the next few weeks? Nah,
exactly. Look, Charlie Welsh at 15 a day, I thought he had a brilliant game for his debut, and we've seen the last few weeks we've picked up injuries. Nicky Little, Daniel Sudden, our squad's getting tested a little bit, but then you have boys like Jay Linton coming back in, Matty Carrier on the bench. Our depth there, so these boys need to be up to sharpness for what is coming. After the week off, the next 4 weeks are probably the biggest 4 weeks this club's had in 20 odd year.
And going on to that then, because that's the next question, obviously you're doing so well in the league, is there much conversation about a double? Is there much conversation about concentrating on one or more than the other, because it has been so long since you won the league, but also in that season there was the League and Cup double?
Look, we concentrate on one game at a time, whatever game's in front of us. It was the Cup this week, so we wanted to get into the next round. After the week off, we'll be back into league action, and the Cup's parked. We'll look to win our next 2 games, go the season undefeated and roll into the playoff with momentum, and then after that the Cup rolls back around against Accies away 25th of March, so it's just one game at a time. We'll play, I think, GHA at home next. We'll look to cement top spot, and that's how it is. It's pretty boring, but it's just one game at a time.
Not boring at all. He's put in some great performances so far this season, and good luck in the second round of the Cup, and obviously good luck in the rest of the league actions, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again, Sean, so cheers, well done again.
Thank you very much indeed. Dale Clancy talking to Sean Muir. We're going to get Clark Skelton's point of view very, very shortly. In fact, we can go to Myerside first of all. It's full time between Watsonians and Melrose, and waiting for us there is Hugh Brown.
Well, 5 tries and a vital 5 points for Melrose keeps them in the hunt at the top end of the table. 3 tries this afternoon for James Brown, the man of the match. But Watsonians certainly had the last laugh when they scored with just a minute to go at the end of the match. They gave all they could, but it wasn't enough, and as Melrose head back down the A68, they'll be happy with the win. Full-time score here at Myerside, Watsonians 17, Melrose 32.
And Dale Clancy is now with Clark Skeldon.
Yes, Clark, obviously a disappointed captain for Jedforest, but it was a really impressive first 40 minutes. You kind of looked like you were certainly in the fight.
Aye, no, I'm disappointed in the result, but I'm proud of the boys who dug in for 40 minutes there, really took it to them, defended really well, and who made them work hard to get the ball off us first half. And I feel second half struggled to get our hands on the ball, keep a hold of it. They are where they are for a reason, and we worked through the week about playing maybe a different way to try and break them down. And the boys are speaking there who enjoyed their game today, who came and tried to play rugby, take them on, unsettle them, and we got stuck in, and in the end it wasn't enough, but plenty of endeavour and plenty going forward to work on.
Obviously, it was a challenging wind in the second half. It was a really strong wind that you were playing into, and as you say, you were trying to play some rugby. Do you feel that the wind is perhaps the one thing that maybe gave you the platform for the performance, and maybe something that perhaps gave Hawick a little bit of a foot up in the second half?
Aye, definitely. With the wind in the first half, we didn't really want to kick it because we know they've got some good kick returners, but we just wanted to play, so we knew going into half time a 2-point lead maybe wouldn't be enough, so we knew the second half was going to be hard. They were going to be coming out firing, and to concede a try so early in the second half was disappointing, but it is what it is. I think going forward we just have to look at the work-ons, and we've got one game left to try and finish the season on a high, so we're not going to be too disheartened for the defeat today. Like I say, there's loads to work on, but not too disappointed.
And you did mention, you're obviously saying that you're proud of the effort of your teammates and your club. You were missing a lot of personnel that you've relied on, for the most of the season. Yeah. I've written a list before of personnel that could potentially play in that team. So to be the 40 minutes against the unbeaten league leaders in Scottish club rugby with a patched up team, disjointed players, it is a great effort.
There is. There's no doubt about it. We're missing a few, especially senior players, but I felt we had enough in the park today. Pillow coming back in, we had enough in the forwards to front up against them. Out wide, Callum sitting in at 10 done well. Young Lewis Elder on the wing. There's loads of young boys, but these boys need to get opportunities going forward. And they got that today, and hopefully that sets us in good stead in the future. Local boys playing for Jella, that's what we want.
And have you been doing much training for the Sevens now? I'm guessing that's the focus.
I've not been. Some of the fitter boys have been, but I think they're starting this week. But I'll not worry too much about that.
I did say that tongue in cheek, but however, there does seem I think there was a lot of rumblings on at the beginning of the season about what kind of Jed outfit would be coming out this season. And Andrew Brown has seemed to, in my opinion, outside looking in, has done a terrific job. He's got a good culture in that team. Is that the feeling inside the camp? Is that he's really taking it to the club and he's getting the best out of this group of players that he's got?
I think over the season he's gotten to know the players at the club. There's a lot of boys that have been there for a long time, and he's gotten to know each player individually and can know what each player can do. And he's always said it's a 2-3 year project, so we've stayed up this season. There was a wee bit of concern earlier on, but we've done well to get ourselves up the table. Maybe disappointed we're not a wee bit higher. It's a 2-3 year thing. With him and Mark Lee coming in, there's limited resources at the start of the season. We've gradually got them boys back, and you saw when we had our wee purple patch, won 4 games on the bounce, and that just kind of tailed off a wee bit now. It's always the same when you get to the end of the season and you're safe. But we're looking to go out on a high against Accies now. But he's done a good job, I think, personally.
Well, it's a disappointing result this afternoon, but obviously it's been a more promising campaign than the one last season. And commiserations today, Clark, but good luck for your final game, and I'm sure you'll enjoy watching the Sevens when it comes round.
I will do, yeah. Thanks very much.
There we are, that's Dale Clancy talking to Clark Skeldon. Before that we heard Sean Muir's point of view, but for the rest of the programme as far as live action is concerned, let's go down to Netherdale. It's 20-20 at the moment. Robin Purdy and Scott Tomlinson.
Yes, it is indeed. 20 points apiece. A penalty has been kicked by Glasgow Hawks, so we are as we were at half time with these teams drawing, but there is a Gala player leaving the field to a yellow card, and that is Lachlan Johnson. And Scott, I think there was a bit of back chat in there.
Well, he's certainly giving it to the touch judge as well. He's certainly giving it full barrels. I think it was a lot of back chat to the referee, and Lachlan's found us all in a situation where, I mean, it's ridiculous, really. You shouldn't be looking at back chatting the referee. Certainly at 20-all with 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, and Hawks, for all they've soaked up the pressure that Gala threw at them in the first sort of 25 minutes of this half, they've really come into this, and their Premiership class and nous and bulk is just starting to come to fruition.
Yeah, it's probably telling the pace of the game that Gala's been in, but I think they've defended really well, Gala, today. It'll be interesting to see how they cope with this line out.
Yeah, and the line out has been taken and gathered in by the Hawks, 6 metres now from the Gala line as they trundle round the corner. There's a Gala body in there, and is that going to be... No, it's not. It's good defence by Gala. There's a Gala body lying all over the top, but the referee has deemed that to be illegal, so Gala getting away with one there.
Yeah, well played again. There's been 3 or 4 jackals in the second half that's created penalties or scrums. It's they're stuffy, Gala, they're sticking in, and they're certainly worth the 20-all draw at the moment.
Yeah, but they're going to play the remainder of this game down a man. There's maybe 9 or 10 minutes remaining, and Gala now with a scrum 7 metres from their own line over on the far corner here at Netherdale. 20 points all. Scrum half off the field, so it's going to be fed by Craig Dodds, and that's gone back, that scrum at a rate of knots, and it's been fumbled as well. Now Gala almost on their own line. It was James Dinning who fed Tim McCavanagh, but McCavanagh dropped it, albeit backwards. It's Glendinning in there trying to steal another metre or so, but Gala almost camped on their own line. They're going to need a decent exit here as Hawks looking to exert pressure. Now it's back in the hands of a Gala player, and that's a nice bit of footwork to exit there, but the penalty's been awarded to Gala for offside, and that's a let-off. That's a cheap one to give away for the Hawks.
Yeah, they were sniffing blood, Hawks there, weren't they? But I mean, you've got cool heads and Ewan Dodds and Craig Dodds to clear their lines. They were offside, Hawks, so hopefully that should be a good kick for Craig Dodds to get up to possibly near enough the halfway line.
Yeah, he's
take the pressure off themselves.
Yeah, he's kicked beautifully from hand this afternoon, Dodds, as he lines up this punt towards the touchline from his own 5 metre line. He sent that safely outside the 22.
And Gala just need to take stock. They're down to 14 players. Make sure they have a scrum half in place there and keep the ball for certainly a passage of play and take the pressure off themselves.
Yeah, and it's been a good game. It's been a real cup tie.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Yeah, have I? It's been good.
And the winners of this, of course, away to Dundee, while not a gimme, there's a chance of a cup run.
Yeah, there is, without a doubt.
Oh, and it's been knocked on by Gala, but I think there was a fingertip in there by Hawks at the line out, which has knocked it forward in the first instance. So we're just waiting for the signal. No, it's the knock on by Gala, unfortunately. So it's going to be a scrum to Glasgow Hawks. 15 metres in from the touch line, 6 metres outside the Gala 22 as young Russell Kerr enters the fray. We've seen him score a couple of tries here against GHK earlier this season. Played in the Scottish Under-18 National Shield final and was impressive on that occasion against Melrose earlier in the year. So he's on for Keith Young, but it's going to be a scrum to Hawks as the clock ticks down. There's 6 or so minutes remaining here at Netherdale. Scottish Cup back with us for the first time in a few years, and a penalty's been awarded as that scrum, the Gala scrum, retreated at a rate of knots, and the penalty's 15 metres in, Scott. It's 7-8 metres outside the 22. Are they taking a crack here?
Well, yeah, if it was me I would take the penalty, but they're kicking from hand, and their place kicking today has been absolutely horrendous with Hawks. Well, they're going for the posts.
Yeah, they have
to.
So it'll
be interesting. They have to at 20 all.
Yeah, all points are precious. Like I say, cup tie, extra time potentially on the line if nothing changes, which wouldn't be a bad thing. As you say, it's been a cracking afternoon's entertainment. And it's going to be Cruikshanks, I believe, the substitute, who's lining this one up. Not the easiest kick of the afternoon, but kickable nonetheless. He's a right-footed kicker over on the far side, so not what you class as his better side, but doesn't seem to have too much of an impact for these decent kickers nowadays. But Gav Cruikshanks, it will be, begins his run up. Struck it better this time, Cruikshanks, and he's missed it. So a reprieve from Gala, who have been out of these two teams on the wrong, probably more on the wrong side of the referee this afternoon. Is going to be a 22 dropout as the noise levels increase in the stand here at Netherdale as we tick towards full time. 4 minutes to go according to the scoreboard clock as Dodds puts his foot through that. The dropout takes it up and into the Hawks half. Lapsley, the fullback, he feeds Pinkerton. Pinkerton tries to dummy and go, but he's wrapped up there in the double tackle by Andrew Mitchell and McCavanagh. But Hawks still trundling forward here. They're up in the 22 and they found the scrum half. Oh, and the scrum half slipped. That was Eric Davey, but there's a man over here on the wing and he slipped as well. The footwork has deserted them. Now it's Downer, the prop, and it's a big hit on the open side wing forward. Seb Hastings, one of the try scorers this afternoon, but Hawks maintain possession. Oh, and it's been fumbled now. It's coming up in at Gallahan, and at the very least there'll be a scrum to Gala here. They're going to try and exit, but there's a Hawks player over the ball. Looks like they've got a man over on that far side, but Ewan Dodds takes it back into the contact. He thought better of it. They're still deep inside their own 22 here. Gala's Eason tries to truck it up. He's hit hard in the tackle. Maintaining possession, Gala now back to Craig Dodds. Craig Dodds has sent that down the park. The winger's under it, and Ross Darrett, the winger, the crowd will probably tell you, has spilled the ball on the halfway line, and that's not the first time he's done that this afternoon, Scott.
No, it's not. They've actually, Gala's not really played on that game today. There, a couple of box kicks on top of him would have been ideal. It's Gala needs to just take stock here. We've got 2.5 minutes left, and you can hear the intensity of the crowd baying for the Glasgow Hawks blood.
Yeah, Ross Darrett, he's scored 8 tries this season, one of which was this afternoon. He's featured twice in the offside line team of the week, so he's no mug, as they say. But
well, he had an opportunity there and he slipped 5 metres from the line as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. The footwork deserted on that occasion, so not the best 2 or 3 minutes for Ross Darrett, and it's a scrum to Gala just inside the Hawks half, right on the 5 metres in from touch on this stand side here at Netherdale. And yeah, you're right, the atmosphere and the intensities just went up a notch.
Yeah, it has. I've just been looking at the bench and looking at Stevie Scotland now. I think he'll be hoping now if we can last the 40 minutes and get Lachlan Johnson back on the field, and if it goes to extra time he'll be more than happy with 15 players on the field, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be Russell Kerr to feed this scrum. Makeshift scrum half in the absence of Lachlan Johnson, who's having a 10-minute period in the cooler. Hawks been strong in the scrum in this second half, and they've got that Gala scrum going backwards again, and there's another penalty being awarded to the Hawks, and it's starting to look ominous now at scrum time.
Yeah, they have struggled, there's no doubt about that. Since Jack Eason went off, James London has actually stayed at number 8, and they've brought Michael Angus on, and they've struggled up front a wee bit. They're just getting tired as well. You're talking some big players that play in the Premier Division with the Hawks players that are playing.
Yeah, let's not forget there are some serious hardened campaigner front rowers in that Hawks team, and Mike Downer, Paul Cairncross, and the hugely experienced Gary Strain, who's been at Glasgow Warriors, he's been at Newcastle Falcons, he's a Scotland Club international, and they're really starting to exert that experience and that extra bit of bulk now as the clock ticks down. Maybe 2 or 3 minutes left here at Netherdale. It remains 20 points apiece, and it's going to be a line out. They've kicked the penalty to the Gala 22 Glasgow Hawks, so Paul Cairncross, who it looks like he's going to go the full 80, the whole Glasgow Hawks look like they're going to do the full shift as it comes out the back. The line out to the rampaging Seb Hastings, the open side. They're only 10 metres as it comes into the hands of Gary Strain, but Gary Strain's been well marshalled, the big prop by the Gala defence, but they inch towards the shadow of the Gala post as a Gala player flew in for the tackle there on Mike Downer, but Downer managed to evade him. Looking a wee bit ominous here for Gala as the Hawks forwards trundle towards that Gala line. They're 3 metres from that particular destination now. Davies at the base. Here comes the crash ball centre. That's a good piece of defence in there by Gala. But it's going to come back on the Hawks side, and they're looking to keep it tight here. It's Strain who takes it into the contact, as he's done on more than one occasion this afternoon. Been a willing worker, Gary Strain. As they come round the corner now, they're only about... the referee's awarded a penalty to Gala, and Gala are going to go quickly here from their own line, from the shadow of their own post, and now it's into the hands of Kerr. Russell Kerr's on the break here. Can he find his man? He's popped it out to Glendinning now. Glendinning comes down the near side. He's been bundled at touch, Glendinning, but a good exit from Gala nonetheless.
Well played, Gala. Great turnover by Gala underneath their own post. Craig Dodd takes a quick tap penalty and an excellent run by Russell Kerr there up the touchline with James Glendinning right on his back. The two under-18s players doing really well there. You know, playing with a real purpose and a real desire to try and win this game of rugby this afternoon.
Yeah, he's been very impressive this afternoon once again, James Glendinning, as he has been all season. Now Hawks trying to almost run the clock down here, and the crowd are letting them know about it, and we're back to a full complement of players for Gala as well, because Lachlan Johnson is back on the paddock, so it's a line out, and it doesn't look the straightest. It's gone over the tail as well, and it's come into the grateful arms of Glenn Brough, this Orcadian prop on the books at Gala nowadays. Oh, that's a lovely cut-out pass from Craig Dodds, and there's men over for Gala here. Now it's Mitchell. Mitchell's got a man inside. Oh, and it's been put to ground by Tim McCavanagh, looking for his second meat pie of the afternoon. And then now it's been sent down the park by the Hawks, and it's Ben Gill who's had to come back into his own half to pick this up. They've got numbers back, Gala, so it should come back on the Gala side, and it does exactly that. Now it's Angus Dunn. Dunn, nice hands out the contact, and again there's a break on here. That's Ben Ballantyne. Yeah, Ben Ballantyne. Has that been turned over by the Hawks though? Yes, it has. It's nip and tuck here. It's to and fro. The Hawks just outside their own 22 after that beautiful break by Ballantyne, and Gav Cruikshanks now has sent that from his own 22 right down the park. Now where is that going to end up? It's going to go over the try line. It's not going to make it to the dead ball line, but for a second there, Scott, that looks like it could have been a 50-22.
What a great opportunity for Gala there. McCavanagh just couldn't quite catch the ball there, or he was in. He was going to be underneath the sticks. What a fantastic game of rugby again for Gala.
Yeah, and what a finish we've had here. It remains 20 points apiece. Gala, it's going to be a dropout from their own line.
Breathless, isn't it?
Yeah, it is breathless. Some of these burly operators in this Glasgow Hawks pack have the hands on the hips, and I don't suppose they'll be too keen on the prospect of extra time. But Craig Dodds is behind his own try line here. He's going to drop this out, and you'd imagine he's went short with it. What do I know? It's been taken in there by the man they did not want to take it, the rampaging Paul Cairncross, and it takes 3 or 4 Gala players to bring him down. It was a wee bit of a kick to nothing by Dodds there, so it gives the Hawks another opportunity to attack here, and it's Pinkerton. Pinkerton cuts back inside. He's well met by Tim McCavanagh, who's been strong in the tackle this afternoon. That's a really good carry by the open side. Seb Hastings takes the Hawks up to 7 metres from the Gala line as Mike Downer comes at 100 miles an hour, the big prop. But he's fumbled it in the contact, and it's another great piece of defence from Gala here. What an end to this game.
They thoroughly deserve the 20-all draw, Gala. The defence has been excellent. The scramble defence, they're working hard round the corner. They're putting line speed on the game, so they're putting them under pressure, Hawks, and they're not enjoying their visit down to Gala today.
No, they've really went hammer and tongs, these two teams. But you have to say, Scott, that it's been played in the best of spirit. I can't remember handbags.
No, there's nothing like that at all. No. And both teams are willing to run and have a go as well, which is great to see.
Yeah, it has. You know, if this is what the reintroduction of the Cup gives us, then we will be happy enough with this, because this has been a cracker here, and it remains 20 points all. There can be little more than a minute left to run. It's a scrum to Gala on their own 5 metre line. Now, their last 2 or 3 scrums have gone back at a rate of knots, but it came back here now. McCavanagh's lurking in the backs. He wasn't on the side of that scrum, even though he's playing wing forward. So Gala here are going to, no, they've had enough, Gala, and they've sent it to the touchline. And the referee, Callum Lazenby, blows for full time. So we are going to come back here for extra time, but the full 80 minutes, the main 80 minutes has finished here. It's Gala 20, Glasgow Hawks 20.
Thank you very much indeed. It's all happening down there at Netherdale. We'll be back very, very shortly for extra time, and we'll see what becomes of that. But Gala certainly playing out of their skins at Netherdale. Let's go to Scremiston, I think, because it's full time there. It was Berwick against Hamilton in National 2. Come in, Mickey Ganotta.
Berwick 44, Hamilton 17. Bear in mind, Hamilton without 11 first team regulars today, but credit Berwick for asserting their authority. 8 tries in all, including a penalty try for a deliberate knock-on. A yellow card for Duncan Hardy for holding the ball, while Hamilton's Roddy Beaton shown red for stamping. Hamilton, though, got 2 deserved late tries. And all 4 sets of Berwick brothers played a part today. Berwick 44, Hamilton 17.
Yeah, terrific stuff for Berwick. 5 valuable points for them. Of course, 5 going down from National 2, as we already know. Let's have a quick recap then of what we can tell you in the Cup. It was Aberdeen Grammar 19, Stirling County 26, Biggar 14, Heriots Blues 33. So Heriots Blues will go and play Kelso at Poynter Park in round 2 on March the 25th. Gala 20, Glasgow Hawks 20. They're going to extra time very, very shortly. We'll be returning there. GHK against Stuart Melville wasn't played. Stuart Melville didn't have a front row, and we consulted our former referee colleague Kelly Mitchell, who says that means GHK will go through by default. That's not officially confirmed, but that's according to Kelly Mitchell. Hawick 34, Jedforest 7, a final score, a game of 2 halves there, and Musselburgh 40, Highland 21 in the other cup match. It's finished in the Premiership. It's Curry 19, Mar 7, which is good news for Selkirk because Mar don't get any points for that one. So Selkirk literally have to go in and win, and Mar lose their next game for Selkirk to make the playoff positions. In National 1 it ended Kelso 31, Dundee 0. 5 points for Kelso. They go back to the top of the table, and Watsonian 17, Melrose 32 is a final score. 5 points for Melrose as well, putting the pressure, both of them, on air at the top of the table. In National 2 we've just heard it, Berwick 44, Hamilton 17, Preston Lodge 61, Cartha Queen's Park 7 is the final score in that one, and we're still waiting the full-time results from Boroughmuir, from Dumfries and from Newton Stewart. I can tell you that Livingston 15, Hoyt-Lundeen 7 is a latest score. In fact, Livingston 43, Lundeen 7 is a final score, so still no win sadly for Lundeen this season. Well, just briefly before we head back to Netherdale, we've got Dale Clancy here at the moment. Some interesting scorelines today, and certainly games of 2 halves because of this strong wind.
Yeah, I think even we were speaking to Clark Skeldon and Sean Muir, and a lot of the conversation about the way that the game panned out here was due to the wind. And you think of some of the pitches and the grounds around the country that, you know, when it's even a wee bit blowy, that it's difficult to play at. So it had a big saying in proceedings across the country. But I think when you look at those 2 results in that one, it's well, and even the one in the Prem that you're looking at there as well, the Curry versus Mar result, that's big for Selkirk, and Kelso have been able to steady the ship after what was a difficult weekend last weekend and keep the pressure on air along with Melrose. So although it's, you know, I think the focus is firmly on the Cup today with obviously the derby that we had here and how Gala are getting on as well. Obviously Six Nations is there as well, but obviously a lot of still really important fixtures in the landscape with domestic action as well in terms of the national and regional picture too.
Okay, well, let's see if we can go back to Netherdale now. Robin Purdy and Scott Tomlinson at the Cup first round match. It's Gala against Glasgow Hawks 2020. Back to you, boys.
Yeah, and we're back underway here. Gala kicked off, they won the ball back. Gala attacking the Fairydean end in this 10-minute period. We're going to have...
Well, it looks like we've lost communication, unfortunately, at Netherdale just as they were kicking off. We'll try and restore that very, very shortly. Gives us a chance to have a little chat again with Dale until we get Robin and Scott back. Remember, it's 2020 and they're playing extra time in round 1 of the Cup match there. So whilst we try and get the elastic bands and everything together, let's get back to Dale. Now, Dale, obviously big match coming up after this, 4:45.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting fixture because of where both of the nations are with Scotland in kind of a period where Gregor Townsend's probably the last real roll of the dice to get some sort of, stamp his kind of legacy on the national team, and Steve Borthwick coming in for England as well. You see a lot on social media with Scotland starting favourites. I just do not think that's the case at the moment. I think that England will. I just think they should rightfully start favourites because of the kind of resources that they have, the change of boss as well at the top to make sure that they'll probably want a reaction. So it's going to be a really intriguing fixture. I think it's a difficult one as well because it's a Kolkata Cup. It's over the last 10 years certainly it's not really been as one-sided as it was maybe for the 10-15 years before that, because it's been pretty one-sided, whereas we've had a bit of the ascendancy over the last few years and they've all been really tight battles. So it's going to be a really interesting fixture, but obviously the first game that's kicked off today, there's been a bit of a gap between the two nations, so hopefully it's not going to be the same for the second game and it's a bit tighter.
So you were monitoring the Cardiff game, weren't you?
Yeah, I was having a little look at it was actually Clark Skildon asked me, he said, did you know the score? And I was completely oblivious because I was absorbed in Hawick versus Jed, so I was kind of forgetting that that Wales-Ireland was going on. So and listening and reading in the reports as to how that game's going, it certainly looks like Ireland have picked up from where they've left off, and Wales maybe haven't benefited from the kind of new boss bounce that most teams get, but then again it's not really a new boss, it's the same boss coming back in, and Gatland's back at the helm. Brought a few old heads in as well to try and steady the ship as they approach a World Cup year, but obviously Ireland, when I last looked at it, were in the ascendancy, and it certainly started as one of the favourites to have a really successful Six Nation campaign.
Of course, I was talking to one of the big stats men at Glasgow Warriors, and we were talking about kind of Borders in the team, etc. Obviously, Stuart Hogg, the only representative because of injury to Darcy Graham and Rory Sutherland, not in the squad today. But it's been something like the last 154 games. There's only been one game, 2017 against Australia, where we haven't had Borders representation, and that was because Stuart Hogg pulled a muscle or something just before the warm-up on that match. But what a record for Borders rugby players. I think it is a record, but I think even over recent times, I think we really do need to kind of appreciate what this club that we're standing at here has kind of done, because the three players that you've mentioned that potentially should be and could be still in the starting lineup are all from Hawick. They've all been brought through the system here. I just, when you grow up and you're playing rugby against the other border teams, and people sometimes don't even class people as a border team. Can you believe that? But when you're playing rugby against other border teams and you're playing with the other players, and then you get district honours, and then you start playing a little bit higher up, there just always seems just such a rich culture of rugby amongst Hawick, and there was, to an extent, not maybe at youth level when I played with Melrose, weren't too prominent, they obviously are now, but you looked at teams like Hawick and Gala and they had such a rich history of rugby and you were almost in awe of them, and so you look back and you think of that record, and for a lot of the time over the last certainly for the last few hundred games, it's been a lot of Hawick guys at the fore of the kind of borderers leading from the front and for the national team. So what about today then? 4:45 kick-off. Obviously, the last time the boys went to Twickenham, it was a victory. There was no one in the ground, of course. It was the COVID era. 2 years before that, it was the big 38-38. Yeah, that was a brilliant game as well. And they've all been different in terms that you think of all the Kolkata Cup games that. Duncan Hodge got all the points 1 year, and it was peeing down with rain, and they're tighter battles, and then 38-38, and the games are a little bit more open now in terms of the Kolkata Cup games are not as tetchy as they perhaps been in recent years. But I still stick by what I said the other night. I predicted that Ireland were going to win by a clear margin. I said England by about 12. And I think France will absolutely thump Italy tomorrow as well. So I think it's pretty much going to be those three teams that are going to pick up large victories, I think, in terms of their margin to their opposition. But I still think that it's a great effort. However, you kind of look and you think about the under-20s last night, went a long period of time with about 21 unanswered points at the Stoop, and they run the under-20s really close. And the under-20s England team should be miles ahead of where we are. So what's a prediction? It's just an opinion that you kind of think that England are going to start as favourites. They should beat us by about 12 points, but anything can happen. So it's cards can come into play, the TMO might come into play. You never know what will happen, but I'm sure it'll be a brilliant game nonetheless. So where is this match going to be won today? Everyone says the forwards, of course. I mean, the pack's going to be absolutely a massive battle. Yeah, I think that the up front certainly is where it's going to be won. I think we're pretty light in the front row in the national team.
England have always had the personnel, but they've just never been able to utilise them effectively in the national team. And I think Eddie Jones, he had quite a boring direct brand of rugby, but I think Borthwick, what he's been able to do in club rugby with Leicester, and what he'll bring to that national team, it'll be getting the platform up front, which will allow the backs to play. But we do have backs that are exciting. We've got the likes of Finn Russell, we've got the likes of Stuart Hogg, Kyle Staines playing brilliant rugby as well as Hugh Jones. So we've got backs to match them. I just feel that we perhaps don't lack that. We don't have the same punch as the forwards do up front compared to England.
Well, it's 8 minutes to go. If you're wondering what's actually happened to Netherdale Connection, we don't know, do we? We don't know what's going on, actually. The last we heard, it was 2020 going to extra time, and then we lost Robin and Scott, unfortunately, so we're still trying very hard. There's a lot of little elves behind the scenes trying to get that back, but at the moment, still nothing from Robin. But what about these results then at the end? We've got Stirling County winning at Aberdeen, Heriots Blues at Biggar. Stuart's Melville obviously couldn't field a team against GHK. Jedforest going down here at Hawick 34 points to 7. Musselburgh beating Highland by 40 points to 21. So pretty much as you would expect. Yeah, I think as you'd expect. I think even the Biggar Heriots result was perhaps one of the ones that you didn't know who Heriots were going to field, but obviously going to Hartree Mill, they've got the win, and it allows them to progress to the next round. I just get a little bit disappointed in the cup as a whole. I alluded to it before the fixture here. I do remember being a young rugby player playing in I think in the middies at the time, 2002, whatever age I was then. But and I was sitting in my room watching the cup final, and it was such a big occasion. And there just does seem to be that kind of lack of interest in it now, and I don't know why. I just think cup rugby is so special, and you've already got teams in the second round. They automatically get a bye. It just seems like they shoehorn it in just so that they can get a final. Eventually they will get a final because the teams will fall by the wayside along the way. But I just think the way that it's formed is pretty poor. I remember years ago when you used to have cup rugby, and I thought Peebles were one of the best teams in the world because they beat a team 100 points to 10 or something. But little did I know that they were well down the rugby pyramid. So I think that there needs to be a lot of work done for the cup competition to bring it back to kind of its past glories. But now we're probably off and running. I just think that when you look at it and you think that if Hawick and Jed play, they then go through to play in Brackies. I just think there's been they've not earned that right for the bye. So I just think it's a little bit cumbersome the way that they've kind of manufactured and manipulated the cup to fit this season. And turning to the regional stuff, the league situation today. Mar losing at Curry 19 points to 7. Kelso and Melrose both getting bonus point wins to put the pressure onto Ayr, and Berwick getting 5 points, which they desperately needed. Yeah, I've touched on the Melrose and the Kelso results. They're big for those teams because it does keep the pressure up front, at the top of the table, for Ayr, because that result did, really set the cat amongst the pigeons last week, Gal's performance. It was a great game to be at as well. I've obviously echoed that a few times. It was a great spectacle for club rugby. But Berwick's result's a big one for them. I think it is really, really important that themselves and Peebles manage to maintain themselves at that kind of level ahead of the restructure next year, because Berwick have played, they've managed to steady themselves as a club over the last few years. They've welcomed a few older heads back, which maybe went to pastures new to play a bit of rugby. They're coming back and lending their experience to the youngsters, but there does seem to be a bit more of a vibrant culture about the rugby back down in Berwick, which is great to see. So hopefully, come the end of the season, when the kind of dust settles, because there's 5 going down in that too, hopefully when the dust settles, that Berwick just managed to keep their kind of toes out of the water and they maintain their position. Okay, well that's unfortunately all we've got time for today, because we haven't got a connection back to Gala. I can tell you that it's Gala 23, Glasgow Hawks 20 at the moment in the first period of extra time. Obviously check out our website and we'll get that result up there as soon as we possibly can. But for now, from Mansfield Park, thanks very much indeed for joining us. From Dale Clancy and myself, bye for now.